Chapter 2344. Litian had always felt that Tao Ming was very strange, but he had never imagined that Tao Ming would betray the Great Thousand World and secretly side with the evil path. One had to know that this was already crossing the bottom line. Even though Yuli Tian and Tao Ming had once stood on the same side, Yuli Tian still wouldn't agree to this. Litian said coldly, "Tao Ming, if you stop now, I can pretend that I didn't see what happened today, and I won't tell anyone. Don't make the same mistake again." Given the relationship between Litian and Tao Ming, Litian could let Tao Ming go this time. However, if Tao Ming insisted on doing things his own way, Litian would obviously not agree. Tao Ming sneered when he heard Litian's words. "Litian, I think you should pretend that you didn't see what happened today, and I can let you go." Tao Ming had obviously made up his mind to side with the evil path, and he didn't hesitate at all. Litian's eyes were filled with killing intent when he saw this. Litian would never agree to Tao Ming betraying the Great Thousand World. Even though they had a good relationship, Litian knew what he had to do when faced with such a big issue. Litian's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Tao Ming and said coldly, "In that case, don't blame me for being impolite." Tao Ming wasn't afraid of Litian's attack at all. Since Litian had found out, Tao Ming couldn't let Litian leave just like that. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Litian and Tao Ming attacked at the same time. Both of them took a step forward and disappeared from where they were standing. At the same time, their fists collided in the sky. The terrifying shockwaves from their collision tore the space apart. Both of them didn't hold back in the slightest in their battle. However, in order to avoid affecting the group of heavenly sect experts below, Tao Ming still confined the space immediately. The battle between the two Emperor Realm Masters could be described as extremely terrifying, but the Masters of Merging Heaven sect naturally had no way of intervening in such a battle. Litian had vowed to prevent Tao Ming from joining the corrupt path, while Tao Ming wasn't willing to let Litian leave so easily. As a result, their battle was extremely intense. Amidst the intense battle, Litian was still unwilling to give up. He looked at Tao Ming and said, "Tao Ming, you keep saying that it's because of Junwuya that you joined the corrupt path. I guarantee you that even if the battle between the righteous and corrupt paths ends, if the Sword sect attacks your heavenly gate, my heavenly pavilion will not stand idly by. Don't be so obstinate. Otherwise, you'll just be digging your own grave." Tao Ming had repeatedly said that he had betrayed the Great Thousand World because of Junwuya and the Sword sect. As such, Litian naturally spoke up to persuade Tao Ming. He even made a promise that he was willing to live and die with the heavenly sect. Unfortunately, when Tao Ming heard Litian's words, he sneered and said, "Litian, do you think I'll believe you? Junwuya's strength is obvious to all. If I continue to stay in the Great Thousand World, wouldn't that be the same as courting death? Tao Ming, you're really stupid. According to what you've said, if Junwuya had that kind of strength, he would have killed you long ago if he wanted to. Why wait until today?" Cursed Litian. With Junwuya's strength, it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill Tao Ming. However, after so many exchanges, Junwuya still hadn't done so. From this, it could be seen that Junwuya didn't have much interest in killing Tao Ming. Just because of this, Tao Ming had betrayed the Great Thousand World and joined the corrupt path. In Litian's eyes, this was truly an act of stupidity. However, no matter how Litian tried to persuade him, Tao Ming didn't waver in the slightest. "What a joke! My life is in my own hands. How can I be at the mercy of others? If I want to deal with this threat, the only way is to let the corrupt path win. As long as Junwuya is dead, I won't have to worry about anything." Just because of Junwuya's threat, Tao Ming was willing to help the corrupt path win. What kind of logic was this? Litian's anger was completely ignited when he heard Tao Ming's words. He attacked even more fiercely. At the same time, the murderous intent in his eyes became even more violent as he stared coldly at Tao Ming. "Stupid, Tao Ming. Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for what happens next." "Ha, do you have the ability to do so?" Tao Ming sneered. After saying so much, Litian knew that Tao Ming was determined to betray the Great Thousand World and join the corrupt path. Since that was the case, there was nothing more to say. He could only capture Tao Ming by force and bring him back for the sovereigns to discuss how to deal with him. Without saying anything else, Litian's attacks became even fiercer. Tao Ming didn't dare to be careless either. Both of them went all out. The two of them, who had once been on good terms with each other, were now fighting fiercely. Litian didn't back down in the face of such a major issue. The two of them fought fiercely from late at night until early morning. Although they didn't hold back at all, there was still no sign of victory or defeat being decided. However, as the sky gradually brightened, Tao Ming's eyes unconsciously revealed a cold smile. He said coldly to Litian, if I were you, I would leave immediately. Litian's expression changed slightly when he heard Tao Ming's strange words. He didn't understand what Tao Ming meant, but Tao Ming didn't explain. He just sneered. Because if you don't leave now, you won't be able to. Litian didn't understand what Tao Ming meant. What a joke. If I want to leave, do you think you can stop me? Tao Ming's stubbornness made Litian lose his patience completely. Litian naturally didn't believe that Tao Ming alone wanted to keep him here. But as soon as his voice fell, an indifferent voice sounded. Tao Ming naturally can't stop you. But what if the three of us join in? Along with the voice, Violet Snake and the other two evil sovereigns appeared before Litian. Litian's expression changed when he saw the three of them. Then, he shouted at Tao Ming furiously. Tao Ming, you're really hopeless. Tao Ming had already contacted Violet Snake and the other evil sovereigns. Even the evil sovereigns had descended on the Heavenly Wu continent. It was clear that everything was premeditated. Tao Ming said indifferently to Litian's shout. Of course, we have to be fully prepared. Brother Tao Ming, let's cut the crap. We don't have much time. Let's kill him and leave, Violet Snake said as soon as Tao Ming's voice fell. The Heavenly Wu continent wasn't safe now, so Violet Snake and the others didn't have much time to waste. But since there was such a good opportunity, Violet Snake also had the intention to kill Litian and leave after killing him. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2345. It was not easy to capture a lone sovereign venerable from the Great Thousand World. Moreover, there were 4 of them present, and it was obvious that they could kill Litian if they fought 4 against 1. It was not easy to capture a lone sovereign venerable from the Great Thousand World. Moreover, there were 4 of them present, and it was obvious that they could kill Litian if they fought 4 against 1. If they could kill Sovereign Venerable, the blow to the Great Thousand World would be immeasurable. After all, sovereigns were not weaklings that could be found on the streets. Losing Sovereign Venerable would be a huge blow to the Great Thousand World. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He had planned to come to Tao Ming's aid, but who would have thought that there would be such a pleasant surprise? Litian frowned slightly when he heard Zishi's words. He did not expect Zishi and the other 2 to appear on the Tianwu road. However, Tao Ming's next words sent a chill down Litian's spine. Then let's do it. Tao Ming did not show any dissatisfaction or objection when he heard that Zishi wanted to kill Litian. In fact, he even urged them to take action. Tao Ming and Litian were not only sovereigns from the Great Thousand World, but they also had a good relationship. When they were in the Great Thousand World, the Heavenly Yin Tower and the Heavenly Sect were on the same side. However, at this moment, Tao Ming wanted to kill Litian. Litian sneered as he looked at Tao Ming coldly. I didn't expect that there would be a time when I misjudged you. Tao Ming, you are very good. Litian was disappointed that Tao Ming wanted to kill him. However, it was also because of this that he finally saw Tao Ming's true colors. Upon hearing Litian's words, Tao Ming ignored him and took the initiative to attack. Seeing this, Violet Snake also shouted, "Attack!" Facing the 4 evil sovereigns, Litian was naturally unable to defend himself. Furthermore, Violet Snake was stronger than Litian. In a one-on-one situation, Enli Tian would probably not be able to defeat Violet Snake. Now that he was facing 4 evil sovereigns, Enli Tian had no hope of winning. In just a single exchange, Enli Tian had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. Meanwhile, Tao Ming continued to unleash a barrage of killer moves. It seemed like he wouldn't rest until he killed Enli Tian. Tao Ming's actions caused Enli Tian to feel a chill in his heart. He felt as if he had been betrayed by Tao Ming's actions. Perhaps in Tao Ming's heart, he had never treated anyone as a friend. Everything he fought was just driven by benefits. For example, now that he had joined the corrupt path, his former friends had become his enemies. Tao Ming didn't care about old friendships with his enemies, and he definitely wouldn't hold back. They had completely suppressed Enli Tian. If this continued, Enli Tian wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Moreover, in order to prevent Enli Tian from escaping, Tao Ming, Violet Snake, and the other 2 purposely blocked off all of Enli Tian's escape routes, not giving him any chance to escape. It was obvious that they wanted to kill Enli Tian right here and now. Knowing that he was no match for them, Enli Tian clashed head-on with Tao Ming. At the same time, he borrowed the force of the collision to retreat. Tao Ming, do you think you can kill me like this? Tao Ming didn't answer Enli Tian's question, but one of the evil sovereigns sneered and said, "Oh, do you think you still have a chance to survive today?" In this evil sovereign's opinion, Enli Tian had no chance of surviving today. It would be strange if Enli Tian managed to escape from the joint attack of the 4 of them. However, when Enli Tian heard the evil sovereign's words, a cold smile appeared on his face as he spoke in an icy tone. "I admit that I'm not a match for the 4 of you. I also admit that if it were anyone else, it would be difficult for them to escape today. However, it's a pity that you've met me today. The 4 of you aren't enough to kill me." Among all the sovereigns in the Great Thousand World, perhaps only Jun Wuya could contend against the 4 of them. The others didn't even have a chance to escape. However, Enli Tian was obviously not one of them. This was not because Enli Tian was strong, but because he had a supreme treasure, the mountain and river diagram. With the mountain and river diagram, Enli Tian had a chance to escape. Tao Ming's expression changed when he heard Enli Tian's words. "Stop him, he has the supreme treasure, the mountain and river diagram." Tao Ming knew that Enli Tian had the mountain and river diagram, but Purple Snake and the others didn't. They hadn't even heard of what the mountain and river diagram was. After all, the mountain and river diagram was a supreme treasure that had been refined after the previous war between the good and evil. However, regardless of whether they knew it or not, Purple Snake and the other 2 attacked immediately after hearing Tao Ming's words. They didn't give Enli Tian a chance to display the mountain and river diagram. Unfortunately, Purple Snake and the other 2 were a step too late. Just as the 3 of them attacked, the phantom of the mountain and river diagram slowly emerged behind Enli Tian. At the same time, Enli Tian's figure also became ethereal. He looked coldly at Tao Ming and said coldly before he left, "Tao Ming, from now on, you are my enemy and the enemy of the entire Great Thousand World." As soon as he finished speaking, Enli Tian's figure began to distort and soon disappeared from where he was standing. With the help of the mountain and river diagram, Enli Tian had successfully escaped. Purple Snake and the other 2's faces darkened. They didn't expect Enli Tian to have such a treasure. Without a doubt, the sovereigns in the Great Thousand World would soon know that Enli Tian had betrayed them. Therefore, they had to leave the Tianwu continent as soon as possible. Tao Ming was well aware of this, and Purple Snake had also thought of this, so he cursed under his breath. "Damn it," Purple Snake looked at Tao Ming and said. "Brother Tao Ming, are you ready?" Tao Ming nodded in response to Purple Snake's question. "We can leave at any time." Purple Snake nodded and said, "Okay, let's go now." Then, the group immediately prepared to leave the Tianwu continent. However, before they left, the 2 evil sovereigns who came with Purple Snake looked at Evergreen City and said, "Are the cultivators in the city also disciples of your heavenly sect?" "That's right," Tao Ming replied. "Aren't they leaving together?" "They can't. These people are not loyal to me." Only the 20 to 30,000 people present were willing to leave with Tao Ming. Hearing Tao Ming's words, the two evil sovereigns sneered and said, "In that case, there's no need for them to live." The two evil sovereigns' intention was obvious. They wanted to massacre the city. Tao Ming's face changed slightly when he heard this. After all, everyone in Evergreen City was a disciple of his heavenly sect. However, after a short while, Tao Ming said in a deep voice, "Up to you, but we don't have much time. It's just a small city. We can burn it down in an instant," the two evil sovereigns said with a smile. "Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation." Chapter 2346. After joining the evil path, Tao Ming did not even care about the heavenly sect disciples and allowed the two evil masters to attack the heavenly sect disciples. Perhaps it was because Tao Ming still had a bit of conscience in his heart, but he did not stay. Instead, he led Yang Chen and the others away, accompanied by Purple Snake. As for the two evil masters, they naturally stayed behind to massacre the city. In the Evergreen City, the disciples of the heavenly sect had finished their cultivation for the night. In the Evergreen City, they weren't worried about the evil path's cultivators attacking because the evil path's cultivators in the surrounding area had basically been cleared out. Even if there were evil path cultivators, they would not be able to sneak into Evergreen City. As usual, the heavenly sect disciples did not know that a real disaster was about to befall them. The two evil masters appeared in the sky above Evergreen City and looked down at the lazy heavenly sect disciples. One of the evil masters said with a mocking smile, "That Tao Ming is really ruthless. These are the disciples of his heavenly sect. Now, he doesn't even care about them. He didn't even say a word to stop them." Indeed, Tao Ming could have spoken out and stopped the two evil exalts from annihilating Evergreen City, but he didn't. The other evil exalted spoke coldly, "Tao Ming has just joined us, and he hasn't even gained a firm foothold. How could he possibly care about the fate of these ants? Moreover, would you have listened even if he had spoken out to stop us?" "Of course not, but I still think that Tao Ming is really ruthless." "Alright, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and do it. It's time to leave." The two of them spoke one after another. As soon as they finished speaking, the heavenly sect disciples in Evergreen City noticed the two of them. Immediately, someone shouted angrily, "Who are you?" The sudden appearance of the two strangers in the sky above the city caused the faces of the heavenly sect's disciples to darken. Hearing the questioning of the crowd, one of the evil sovereigns sneered, "The people who will kill you." With the cultivation base of these heavenly gate disciples, they naturally couldn't see through the two evil sovereigns. Just as they were about to shout, one of the evil sovereigns had already made his move. With a palm strike, a terrifying pressure instantly enveloped the entire Evergreen City. Feeling this pressure, the expressions of the heavenly sect disciples in Evergreen City changed drastically. This kind of pressure made them unable to resist at all. They could only watch helplessly as the giant spiritual energy palm descended from the sky like a mountain. Then, the entire Evergreen City was instantly razed to the ground by this palm. For an expert at the level of the evil dominator, it was simply too easy for him to annihilate a city without anyone stopping him. With just a single palm strike, Evergreen City was reduced to nothingness, and the numerous heavenly sect disciples in the city were instantly killed. The two evil sovereigns slaughtered Evergreen City effortlessly, and they did so to completely cut off Tao Ming's path of retreat. Thinking about it, Tao Ming had betrayed the Great Thousand World, turned to the evil path, and killed many heavenly sect disciples before he left. If he could be so cruel to his own sect's disciples, would the Great Thousand World still accept him? The massacre of Evergreen City was definitely on Tao Ming's head, and with this matter, it was basically impossible for Tao Ming to return to the Great Thousand World again. Tao Ming was naturally very clear about this, which was why he didn't stop them. After all, it was useless to stop them. The numerous heavenly sect disciples in Evergreen City were like Tao Ming's proof of allegiance, but this proof of allegiance was a little too heavy. After all, it was exchanged with the lives of so many people. With the support of Zi Shi and the other two, Tao Ming led Yang Chen and the others, who were willing to follow him, and quickly left the Tianwu continent. At the same time, Jun Wuya and Dan Qingyang, who were at the station on the Tianwu continent, also received a message from Yin. Tao Ming has betrayed Evergreen City. The content of the message was very simple, but when he received the news, Dan Qingyang's face changed drastically. He looked at Jun Wuya and said angrily, "Brother Wuya, Tao Ming has betrayed us." Compared to Dan Qingyang, Jun Wuya was relatively calm, and he only said, "Let's go." Tao Ming had betrayed them, and as the sovereigns of the Great Thousand World, Jun Wuya and Dan Qingyang naturally couldn't be indifferent. No matter what, the two of them had to make a trip to Evergreen City. As soon as they finished speaking, the two of them disappeared in a flash. With their speed, it naturally didn't take long for them to reach Evergreen City. Looking at the burned Evergreen City, Dan Qingyang could still feel the aura of the two evil sovereigns in the air. His expression was extremely unsightly. Has Tao Ming gone crazy? In Dan Qingyang's opinion, Tao Ming was absolutely crazy. Not only did he betray the Great Thousand World and turn to the evil path, but he didn't even let off his own sect's disciples and slaughtered the entire Evergreen City. Dan Qingyang released his divine sense, but he couldn't find any survivors at all. Looking at everything in front of him, not only was Dan Qingyang's heart burning with anger, but even Jun Wuya's face was ugly. As the ancestor of the heavenly sect, he could even kill his own disciples. This was indeed despicable. However, Jun Wuya was generally calm. After sensing for a while, he found that Tao Ming and the others had already gone far away, and it was impossible to catch up with them now. Immediately, Jun Wuya said indifferently, "Tell the news to Tenzu and the others." Tao Ming's betrayal was such an important matter that it was naturally impossible to hide it. Hearing this, Dan Qingyang cursed inwardly, "Damn it." However, he didn't hesitate and immediately contacted Tenzu and the others through the voice-transmitting talisman. The battle on the Heavenly Wu continent had always been handled by Jun Wuya and the other three. Outside the space passage, in the headquarters of the Great Thousand World in the Flaming Wind Realm, Tenzu and the other sovereigns gathered together, but everyone's face was ugly. Obviously, they all knew about Tao Ming's matter. Has this matter been confirmed? Sitting together with the other sovereigns, Yunchen asked with some doubt. After all, his relationship with Tao Ming was different from the others. The two of them were brothers, so Yunchen naturally didn't want to believe that Tao Ming would do such a crazy and stupid thing. Hearing Yunchen's words, Dao Xiong snorted coldly and said, "Brother Wuya and Brother Qingyang have both personally gone to Evergreen City, so how can it be false? Moreover, this bastard Tao Ming not only betrayed the Great Thousand World, but also killed his own disciple. He's worse than a pig or a dog." Such a person who could even kill his own disciple was indeed looked down upon by everyone. After hearing Dao Xiong's words, the faces of Luo Xing and the other emperors, including the heavenly ancestor, turned extremely ugly. Please add this to your collection. Monthly vote, recommend it. Chapter 2347. Tao Ming's betrayal enraged the sovereigns of the Great Thousand World. Even Yunchen did not continue to speak up for Tao Ming. After all, Tao Ming had crossed everyone's bottom line by turning to the demonic path's side, not to mention that he had allowed the demonic path's cultivators to slaughter the heavenly sect's disciples. This made the emperors even more furious and despised him. The news of Tao Ming's betrayal quickly spread throughout the Great Thousand World. Xiao Chen and the others who were on the Tianwu continent also learned about it. At their residence, Xiao Chen, Guling Yao, Tian Yu, Hong Xiu, Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, Dao Ju, and Xiao Xiao were sitting together and talking about Tao Ming's betrayal. Dao Ju said with a look of disdain, "What a good-for-nothing. I can't believe he defected to the evil path." Dao Ju had always been fearless. At this time, she did not hide her disdain for Tao Ming. Compared to Dao Ju, Xiao Chen was much calmer. Although Xiao Chen did not expect Tao Ming to betray the Great Thousand World and join the evil path, since it had already happened, it was useless to say anything. However, Tao Ming would probably become the enemy of the entire Great Thousand World in the future. Losing Tao Ming and the Kadian sect was indeed a big blow to the Great Thousand World. After all, the Kadian sect was one of the 10 great Ling Tian sects of the Great Thousand World. Tao Ming's betrayal also made the sovereigns extremely angry. In the end, the sovereigns decided to end the battle on the Tianwu continent as soon as possible and slaughter all the evil path cultivators on the Tianwu continent. For this reason, Xiaochen and the others could only rush to the front line again. This time, the three sovereigns, Jun Wuya, Yin Litian, and Dan Qingyang, were personally involved. On the Tianwu continent, the Great Thousand World began to attack fiercely. Because there was no evil master, the evil path cultivators could not resist the attacks of Jun Wuya and the other two sovereigns. The Great Thousand World quickly took control of the Tianwu Great Road. Of course, the evil path martial artists on the Tianwu Great Road were all killed, and not a single one was left alive. The Tianwu continent was taken down very smoothly, and the war on the Tianwu continent ended. However, for Xiaochen, there was nothing to be excited about. Since the start of the war, not a single evil venerable had made a move. It seemed like the Heavenly Wu continent was deliberately given to the Great Thousand World by the evil path. He didn't know what the corrupt path was planning to do. Giving the Tianwu continent to the Great Thousand World for free was indeed somewhat illogical. Although they had taken down the Tianwu Road, it did not cause any fatal blow to the evil warriors. This naturally made Xiaochen unhappy. However, Xiaochen was not happy at all. On the contrary, he fell into deep thought. The way he saw it, the evil path was definitely planning something. In order to celebrate taking down the Tianwu continent, many cultivators of the Great Thousand World spontaneously held a banquet, but Xiaochen was not interested in it. In Xiaochen's opinion, it was indeed too early to celebrate. After all, everything was not settled yet. He drank alone. At this time, Long Qing and Xian Yuanling came to Xiaochen. Looking at Xiaochen, Xian Yuanling asked, "What's wrong? Drinking alone here? I keep feeling that something is not right. The corrupt path must be planning something." In response, Xiaochen replied without hiding anything. Xiaochen did not think that the corrupt path only had this much strength. If that was the case, then the battle between the good and evil would not have made the sovereigns so nervous. Based on the battle on the Tianwu continent, the corrupt path could be said to be completely powerless to resist. There were only two explanations for this. One was that the corrupt path was weak to begin with, and the other was that the corrupt path simply didn't care about the Tianwu continent. Or it could be said that the corrupt path had deliberately given the Tianwu continent to the Great Thousand Worlds. From the start, the corrupt path had never thought of guarding the Tianwu continent to the death. Moreover, after experiencing the battle on the Tianwu continent, Xiaochen noticed a problem. On the Tianwu continent, besides the cultivators of the Great Thousand World and the corrupt path, there was no other life on the Tianwu continent. The native martial artists that were originally on the Tianwu continent had actually all disappeared. It was just like a barren continent. However, Xiaochen had been to the Tianwu continent before. This was definitely not a barren continent. In that case, where did the people of the Tianwu continent go? Could it be that all the living beings on an entire continent had disappeared into thin air? They had successfully taken back the Tianwu continent, but there were still many doubts. This did not make Xiaochen happy at all. Not only Xiaochen, but Jun Wuya and the other sovereigns were also not very happy at this time. The three sovereigns had taken action at the same time. Without the evil master's interference, it was expected that they would be able to take back the Tianwu continent. However, the battle on the Tianwu continent was too abnormal. At this time, the sovereigns had gathered together to discuss the battle on the Tianwu continent. Everyone had the same idea as Xiaochen. They felt that things were a little strange. Even Jun Wuya, who rarely spoke, took the initiative to speak at this time. It's not just the Tianwu continent. The entire Flaming Wind realm seems to have been massacred. All the living beings in the Flaming Wind realm seem to have disappeared into thin air. After discovering that there were no signs of life on the Tianwu continent except for the Great Thousand Worlds experts and the corrupt path, Junwei used the 3 pure ones to go to another continent in the Flaming Wind realm to check it out. The result was the same as the one on the Tianwu continent. All the living beings in the Flaming Wind realm had disappeared into thin air. This was the result of Junwei's investigation. Hearing this, the sovereigns naturally thought that all this was the work of the corrupt path. They had massacred the entire Flaming Wind world. Even the imperial ancestors sucked in a breath of cold air at such an outcome. It should be known that although the Flaming Wind realm was only a minor thousand world, the number of living beings living in it was definitely not small. Massacring the living beings of an entire minor thousand world was simply insane to the extreme. Moreover, the sovereigns did not think that the corrupt path would not have spent so much effort to massacre the living beings of an entire minor thousand world. There must be a reason behind this. Otherwise, even if the corrupt path wanted to kill, they would not have done such a thing. After all, they could have done it slowly instead of massacring the living beings of an entire minor thousand world all at once. The most important thing now was to find out what the corrupt path was up to. Hearing the speculations of the sovereigns, Tenzu, who had not spoken until now, suddenly spoke up with an ugly expression. Blood sacrifice. These guys have sacrificed the entire Flaming Wind realm. They want to resurrect the evil god. Tenzu's expression was extremely ugly as he slowly spoke. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2348. Tenzu was the only one present who had participated in the last righteous and demonic war, so he obviously had the most detailed understanding of the evil path. Tenzu was the only one present who had participated in the last righteous and demonic war, so he obviously had the most detailed understanding of the evil path. When the emperors guessed that the evil path had killed all the living beings in the Flame Wind realm, Tenzu immediately guessed that the evil path wanted to resurrect the evil god Xiatian. Hearing Tenzu's words, all the emperors present were slightly taken aback. They had no idea what the evil god was. Seeing this, Tenzu explained with a solemn expression. The evil god is the leader of the evil path, and he is also the strongest person. Back then, he had already surpassed the emperor realm. The evil god was someone who was half a step away from the emperor realm. Hearing this, all the emperors present turned solemn. Everyone present was an emperor realm master, but they knew very well that they had no chance of winning against the evil god who was half a step away from the emperor realm. The evil god had never expected that the evil path would slaughter all the living beings in the Flame Wind realm in order to resurrect him, even at the cost of all the living beings in the Flame Wind realm. But even so, coming back from the dead isn't such a simple matter. Although they were nervous, someone quickly opened his mouth to speak. Yes, even though the evil god was terrifying, it would not be easy for the evil path to resurrect him. Hearing the sovereign's question, the ancestor of heaven did not reply. Instead, he fell into silence. The ancestor of heaven naturally knew that it would be difficult to resurrect the evil god, but it did not mean that it was impossible. After all, evil warriors had mastered many forbidden techniques. Hopefully, the evil god was not successfully resurrected. Otherwise, this righteous and demonic war would be even more difficult, because facing the evil god, among the many emperors in the Great Thousand World, as he thought about this, Tenzu's gaze unconsciously fell on Junwei. That's right, if the evil god really came back to life, then of all the emperors in the Great Thousand Domains, only Junwei could fight against him. Moreover, it was precisely because of Junwei that the Great Thousand World had a slight chance of winning. Otherwise, without Junwei, the Great Thousand World would be in complete despair. Junwei was also in existence with half a foot past the Emperor realm, but compared to the evil god Xiatian, it was hard to say who was stronger. But no matter what, with Junwei's strength, he could at least fight the evil god. Junwei's existence was the only hope that Tenzu saw. While the emperors were discussing, in the sealed area, Purple Snake, Yin Tong, and the other evil sovereigns had gathered again. Even Tao Ming, who had just joined the evil path, was present at this time. At this time, Tao Ming could no longer be considered an emperor of the Great Thousand Domains, but an evil sovereign of the evil path. Although the evil sovereigns weren't too enthusiastic about Tao Ming joining them, they didn't deliberately make things difficult for him. After all, Tao Ming's strength was enough to stand on equal footing with the evil sovereigns. Adding on the fact that he had joined them, it would be of great help to the corrupt path. Tao Ming had already learned of the existence of the evil god Xia Tian from Purple Snake. At this time, looking at the blood ball in front of him, Tao Ming's face was filled with shock. He had not thought that the evil path would have such a trump card that even the evil god had been successfully resurrected. The evil god Xia Tian had long been resurrected and had been in closed-door cultivation to recover. Today, Yan Tong and the others had received a message from Xia Tian and hurried to the sealed area. In front of everyone's eyes, the blood-red ball continued to expand before finally exploding. It turned into a rain of blood that poured down from the sky. As the rain of blood fell, Xia Tian's figure appeared in front of everyone at the same time. His face was red and he was wearing a simple ash-gray robe. He gave people a scholarly feeling, just like a scholar, cultured and refined. Just based on his outer appearance, no one would associate this scholarly man with the evil god Xia Tian. However, he was the leader of the evil path, the evil god Xia Tian. His lips curled into a smile. It was clear that in these days of closed-door cultivation, Xia Tian had completely recovered. The current Xia Tian had already recovered his strength and his mood was very good. At the same time, seeing Xia Tian, Purple Snake, Yan Tong, and the others, they all respectfully bowed and said, "Greetings to the evil god." "Alright, there's no need for these formalities. Now that this one has returned, my evil path will once again rule this world." Xia Tian's mood was very good. While speaking, he slowly walked in front of Yan Tong and the others. Being reborn, Xia Tian felt very good. His eyes swept over everyone one by one before finally landing on Tao Ming. From Yan Tong's words, Xia Tian already knew Tao Ming's identity. He knew that Tao Ming was a traitor from the boundless world. The smile on Xia Tian's face did not decrease as he spoke in a soft voice. "You are Tao Ming? Not bad, you know how to leave the dark for the light." Tao Ming greets Sir Evil God. Hearing this, Tao Ming lowered his head and respectfully said. Xia Tian and Junwuya were existences on the same level, but the feeling Xia Tian gave people was completely different from Junwuya. If Junwuya was an ancient well without any waves, making people unable to see its depths, then Xia Tian was a giant wave that broke through the waves, making people feel fear and awe. It was even more pressure than facing Tenzu. Like this, when Tao Ming faced Xia Tian, naturally he was incomparably nervous. Hearing Tao Ming's words, Xia Tian said with a faint smile, "Alright, since you came from the boundless world, then tell me about the situation of the boundless world." Xia Tian did not understand the situation of the boundless world, so he wanted to know the situation of the boundless world from Tao Ming. Faced with Xia Tian's question, Tao Ming did not dare refuse. He immediately told Xia Tian everything he knew about the situation of the boundless world. Including the 10 great Ling Tian sects, as well as the strength and numbers of the emperors of the boundless world, he gave Xia Tian a detailed introduction. Silently listening until Tao Ming's voice fell, Xia Tian said with a faint smile, "After all these years, has the boundless world fallen to this point? There are only 14 emperors, and even if that old fellow Tenzu is added in, there are only 15 people. Moreover, you have joined my evil path." It was clear that Xia Tian looked down on the current strength of the boundless world. Compared to the past, the boundless world was clearly much weaker. Of course, what Xia Tian did not know was that there were not only these emperors in the boundless world, but there was a group of people who liked to wander the world, so it was hard to find them. If all the emperors who were still alive in the boundless world were added up, the number would not be less than the number during the first war between good and evil. Hearing Xia Tian's words, Tao Ming's face was a bit gloomy as he said, "Sir Evil God is right, but among the emperors of the boundless world, there is one person you need to pay special attention to. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation." This chapter ends. Chapter 2349. Among the emperors of the Great Thousand World, there was one person that Xia Tian had to pay attention to. As for who this person was, there was no doubt that it was Jun Wuya. Among the emperors of the Great Thousand World, there was one person that Xia Tian had to pay attention to. As for who this person was, there was no doubt that it was Jun Wuya. Although the feeling that Jun Wuya gave Tao Ming was far less overbearing and terrifying than Xia Tian, Tao Ming knew that Jun Wuya was definitely not as simple as he seemed on the surface. In Tao Ming's eyes, Jun Wuya was an endless sea. You didn't know how big he was or how deep he was. You would never be able to figure out his depth. In Tao Ming's heart, it was not an exaggeration to say that if there was anyone in the Great Thousand World who could compete with Xia Tian, it would undoubtedly be Jun Wuya. Other than him, no one else had this possibility. Hearing Tao Ming's words, Xia Tian asked with interest, "Oh, who is this person?" "Jun Wuya." Tao Ming replied in a deep voice. After his voice fell, Tao Ming paused for a moment before he added, "This person is known as the strongest person in the Great Thousand World. His cultivation is unfathomable. According to what this subordinate knows, Jun Wuya's cultivation has already surpassed the Emperor realm. Both Purple Snake and Yen Tong have fought with Jun Wuya. His cultivation had surpassed the Emperor realm." Hearing Tao Ming's words, the expression in Xia Tian's eyes finally changed. If Jun Wuya was still at the Emperor realm, then no matter how strong his battle strength was, Xia Tian would not care. However, since he had surpassed the Emperor realm, it was different. He was worthy of Xia Tian's attention. At the same time, both Purple Snake and Yen Tong had fought with Jun Wuya. Xia Tian's gaze turned to the two of them. Facing Xia Tian's gaze, before he could speak, Yen Tong took the initiative to speak. "Tao Ming is right. This person is indeed very strong. If I hadn't grasped the flame element secret technique, I would have been killed on the spot." Receiving Yen Tong's acknowledgement and learning that Yen Tong had almost died at Jun Wuya's hands, Xia Tian became more and more interested in Jun Wuya. The smile on his face became even more devilish as he said, "Jun Wuya, huh? I didn't expect there to be such a person in the Great Thousand Domains. Interesting." It was clear that Xia Tian had already deeply remembered the name Jun Wuya. As soon as his voice fell, Jun Wuya looked at the evil venerables present and softly spoke. "Since I'm back, let's fight. I don't like a small thousand world like the Flaming Wind boundary. It's better to fight in the Great Thousand World. Besides, my son is still in the Great Thousand World. I have to go back." Xia Tian's meaning was very clear, it was to attack the boundless world. Hearing Xia Tian's words, Yen Tong and the others did not object at all. With Xia Tian here, Yen Tong and the others were naturally filled with confidence. Moreover, they knew that Xia Tian had a reason to return to the Great Thousand World. That was because Xia Tian's son was also the evil son of the evil path. He was currently sleeping in a forbidden area of the Great Thousand World. In the war between good and evil, Xia Tian knew that it was hard to go against the tide and the evil path was about to be defeated. In the final moments, Xia Tian used a secret technique to seal his only son, giving him a chance to live. At the same time, Xia Tian's remnant soul was left behind at that time. Now that the war between good and evil had erupted, Xia Tian would definitely go back to release his son. Under Xia Tian's orders, the evil path immediately prepared to counterattack. Although the spatial channel was firmly controlled by the Great Thousand World, so what? They could just directly attack. This was Xia Tian's pride. Even if the emperors of the Great Thousand World tried to stop them, so what? Could they stop them? The evil path's actions could not be hidden from the Great Thousand World. Or it could be said that the evil path's side did not want to hide anything and was preparing to counterattack with great fanfare. Very quickly, they noticed the abnormal movements of the evil path's cultivators in the Flame Wind world. They kept gathering in the direction of the spatial channel, clearly preparing to attack. After receiving this news, Tenzu and the emperors made a prompt decision. They immediately withdrew everyone from the Heavenly Wu Road and returned to the spatial channel, preparing to welcome the evil path's counterattack. Xiao Chen and the others followed the large group back to the spatial channel. This was the Great Thousand Worlds headquarters in the Flame Wind world and also the gathering place of many cultivators in the Great Thousand World. More and more Evil Path's cultivators began to gather around the spatial channel. Moreover, according to reliable news, Purple Snake, Yen Tong, and the other evil sovereigns had also appeared. It was clear that the Evil Path's side was not bluffing. The Heavenly Wu Road had just been taken away. In the battle on the Heavenly Wu Road, Purple Snake and the other evil sovereigns did not have any intention of making a move other than supporting Tao Ming. It was clear that they had given up on the Heavenly Wu Road. However, this time, the Evil Path's side was aggressive. There must be some unforeseen event. As for the reason for this unforeseen event, the emperors and Tenzu quickly guessed it. They guessed that the evil god Xiatian had been successfully resurrected. Without Xiatian, the Evil Path's side would definitely not choose to counterattack so openly. In the previous battle, the Evil Path's side already knew the strength of Jun Wuya. If they did not have any preparations or trump cards, they would not have rashly launched an attack like this. The news of the evil god's resurrection was not concealed by the emperors, so everyone in the Great Thousand World quickly learned about it. Regarding this, many cultivators in the Great Thousand World were a little nervous. After all, a person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. The evil god Xiatian's ferocity and strength were recorded in many ancient books. Even if the Great Thousand World's experts present had not seen Xiatian, they did not dare to underestimate him in the slightest. Both sides were making their final preparations. The Great Thousand World was ready to face the Evil Path's attack at any time. While waiting for the Evil Path's attack, on this day, Xiaochen, Dao Ju and the others were sitting together. Dao Ju said in disbelief. A guy who has been dead for so many years can still be resurrected. Brother Xiaochen, do you think the Evil Path's side is bluffing? Dao Ju did not believe that a person who had been dead for so many years could be resurrected. This was simply impossible. However, Xiaochen shook his head in response. It should be true. If it was a bluff, the Evil Path's side would not have to go to this extent. This battle is inevitable. From various signs, it seemed that the Evil Path's side was not bluffing this time. They really wanted to launch an attack on the Great Thousand World. Therefore, Xiaochen believed that the emperors in Tenzu's judgment was not wrong. Seeing this, Dao Ju was silent for a moment. However, just as he was about to speak, the sound of a bugle horn suddenly sounded. Hearing this sound, Xiaochen and the others' faces turned serious. After looking at each other, everyone instantly disappeared and rushed out of the camp. The sound of the bugle horn indicated that the Evil Path's side had really launched an attack. Xiaochen and the others naturally did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2350. Just a moment ago, they were still discussing whether or not the Evil Path was bluffing. Now, the battle had already begun. When Xiaochen and the others arrived outside the station, many cultivators from the Great Thousand World also flew over from all over the world. This was the first time the Evil Path had initiated a battle, and it was very likely to be the first battle after the evil god's resurrection. Therefore, the emperors and Tenzu of the Great Thousand World were very cautious. Xiaochen and the others stood at the front of the group. Soon, Jun Wuya and the other sovereigns also appeared. Everyone's eyes were fixed in front of them, and a solemn look flashed in their eyes. Under everyone's gaze, many Evil Path cultivators finally appeared in front of everyone. Facing such a large number of Evil Path cultivators, Dao Xiong's expression was ugly as he spoke. They're here. As Dao Xiong's voice sounded, Zi Shi, Yen Tong, Tao Ming and the other evil sovereigns appeared in front of everyone. However, at this moment, under the escort of the evil sovereigns, a middle-aged man with a scholarly appearance was clearly the real focus. They had never seen this middle-aged man before, but when Tenzu saw this middle-aged man, he said with a cold expression, Xiatian. Yo, Tenzu, after not seeing you for so many years, you still haven't improved at all. Hearing Tenzu's words, Xiatian said with a chuckle. the only one present who knew Xia Tian was Tenzu, but after just a few words, Xia Tian ignored Tenzu. Although the heavenly ancestor was strong, there was still a gap between him and Xia Tian. Xia Tian did not place the heavenly ancestor in his eyes. In the last war between the righteous and evil, Xia Tian had already fought with the heavenly ancestor. In a one-on-one situation, the heavenly ancestor could not stop him. At this time, Xia Tian was more interested in Tao Ming and the Junwuya mentioned by Yan Tong. He was an existence that had surpassed the emperor realm just like him. Looking away from Tenzu, Xia Tian said indifferently, "Who is Junwuya?" Hearing Xia Tian's words, Junwuya gave a helpless bitter smile, but he still softly said, "Being remembered by the evil god, it seems like this old man's honor." Hearing Junwuya's words, Xia Tian's eyes instantly looked over. Regarding this, Junwuya didn't avoid it and the two of them looked at each other. Facing Junwuya, although he did not release any aura, Xia Tian could still feel that Junwuya was not simple. What was certain was that Yan Tong and the others' evaluation of Junwuya wasn't too exaggerated. This person was indeed very strong, and he was only one step away from the emperor realm. Among the emperors of the Great Thousand World, there was actually such a powerhouse. Xia Tian said with a faint smile, "Not bad, you didn't disappoint this one." Xia Tian's words sounded very relaxed, but his expression had already become serious. They hadn't fought yet, but Xia Tian could already feel that Junwuya was very strong. In the entire Great Thousand World, Junwuya was indeed the only person who could contend with Xia Tian. But at this time, the other emperor's eyes fell on Tao Ming. Compared to Zixi and the other evil sovereigns, the other emperors clearly hated Tao Ming more. It was not for anything else, but because Tao Ming was once an emperor of the Great Thousand World, but now he had betrayed the Great Thousand World. The battle hadn't started yet, but the atmosphere was becoming more and more tense. In this attack, the Evil Path's side didn't hold back at all. All the Evil Path's cultivators in the Flame Wind world had come out in full force. Facing a battle of this scale, many people couldn't help swallowing their saliva, inevitably feeling a little timid in their hearts. However, this kind of feeling didn't give them much time to savor it. At this time, Xia Tian had already opened his mouth and said, "Kill." Following Xia Tian's words, the Evil Path's side immediately launched their attack. Needless to say, the many cultivators of the Great Thousand World went forward to meet them. Facing the Evil Path's cultivators, everyone was very clear that it was either you die or I die, so there was no way they would hold back. Xiao Chen and the others were the new overlords of the Great Thousand World, and could even be said to be the strongest existence below the emperors, so they naturally bore the brunt of the attack. Charging towards the Evil Path's cultivators, Xiao Chen slashed out with his sword. Instantly, several Evil Path's cultivators in front of him were directly killed by Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen had no room to intervene in the battle between the emperors and evil sovereigns, so Xiao Chen could only kill the Evil Path's cultivators. However, the number of Evil Path's cultivators this time simply made one's scalp numb. In the previous battle on the Tianwu Road, although the number of Evil Path's cultivators was not small, compared to this, it was absolutely insignificant. This time, the number of Evil Path's cultivators could be said to be more than 10 times that of the battle on the Tianwu Road. When the battle broke out, the emperors and evil sovereigns were also fighting fiercely. Only Junwuya and Xia Tian hadn't made a move yet. Before the battle began, the emperors had already made a decision. Xia Tian would naturally be left to Junwuya to deal with. Although Junwuya was helpless against an expert like Xia Tian, there was no other way. Other than Junwuya, no one else had the strength to contend with Xia Tian. With a calm expression, Xia Tian looked at Junwuya and said indifferently, "You're not bad. After all these years, you're the strongest opponent I've met. How about it? Are you interested in joining my evil path? Let's work together and go against the heavens." Xia Tian said in an indifferent voice. Hearing this, Junwuya shook his head and said, "Let's not talk about this nonsense and directly make a move." Xia Tian's words were a joke. He clearly knew that Junwuya wouldn't betray the Great Thousand World. Hearing Junhui's reply, the smile on Xia Tian's face became even more evil. But at the same time, an aura that soared into the sky suddenly erupted from Xia Tian's body. This aura, even an Emperor Realm expert's expression would change because this was clearly an aura that surpassed the Emperor Realm. But Junhui's expression didn't change at all. At the same time, an aura that wasn't weaker than Xia Tian's erupted from Junhui's body. Both of them were existences with one foot in the Emperor Realm. It could be said that they were the strongest experts in this world. Even Tenza wasn't their match. Without any superfluous words, Xia Tian took a step forward. His figure seemed to teleport as he directly appeared in front of Junhui. He sent out a palm and a dense blood-red light directly dyed the starry sky red. It's a pity. If an expert like you were on my evil path's side, no one in this world would be able to stop this lord. What a pity. Xia Tian said in an indifferent voice. But Junhui didn't reply. An azure light flashed and fiercely collided with Xia Tian's blood chi. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2351. Two existences whose cultivations had surpassed the Emperor Realm, Junhui and Xia Tian's clash was so powerful that even the other emperors and evil sovereigns didn't dare to get too close. It could be seen that Junhui and Xia Tian weren't holding back at all. This time, Junhui was using his full strength right from the start, clearly not as relaxed as before. Previously, whether it was fighting with Purple Snake or Yen Tong, Junhui didn't feel much pressure because even though the two of them were quite strong, there was still a gap between them and Junhui, so they couldn't threaten Junhui at all. However, it was different when facing Xia Tian. As the leader of the evil path, Xia Tian's strength wasn't any weaker than Junhui's. Coupled with the fact that evil path cultivators had many tricks up their sleeves, Junhui naturally didn't dare to be careless. With a single clash, the two of them instantly engaged in a fierce battle. Space began to collapse as the two of them fought, giving people a feeling as if the sky was collapsing and the earth was collapsing. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of moves. At the same time, as the battle continued, both Xia Tian and Junhui's auras became more and more terrifying. Blood chi filled the sky behind Xia Tian, while a lotus phantom appeared around Junhui, faintly discernible. Ha, not bad, you didn't disappoint this king. This king has returned, but I never thought that I would meet a master like you. Interesting. While fighting, Xia Tian also laughed. Xia Tian no longer had any doubts about Junhui's strength. He was indeed a strong opponent. Even if Xia Tian was incomparably arrogant, he had to admit that Junhui was qualified to fight with him. Hearing Xia Tian's words, Junhui didn't reply, but his attacks became even more fierce. Xia Tian was praising his strength, but Junhui was also praising him. After so many years, especially after Junhui had touched the threshold of breaking through to the Emperor Realm, he had never met an opponent like Xia Tian. When they were in the boundless world, Junhui had also made a move, but he wasn't serious at all. Now that he was facing Xia Tian, Junhui had to use 120% of his strength to fight Xia Tian. The battle between the two of them affected everyone's hearts. After all, Junhui and Xia Tian both represented the peak battle strength of their respective sides. It could even be said that their battle strength surpassed the Emperor Realm and the evil Emperor Realm. The outcome of the battle between the strongest experts of both sides would determine the direction of the battle to a large extent. After Junhui and Xia Tian, the victory or defeat of the emperors and evil emperors didn't seem that important anymore. Because above the emperors and evil emperors, there were still the two peerless masters, Junhui and Xia Tian. They were the supreme existences that suppressed everything. While killing the evil cultivators, Xiaochen was also secretly paying attention to the battle between Junhui and Xia Tian. Seeing that Junhui wasn't at a disadvantage, Xiaochen's heart calmed down a little. Junhui and Xia Tian, their strength was almost the same. At least until now, the two of them could be said to be evenly matched. But when everyone thought that the two of them would continue fighting, Xiatian suddenly gave a cold laugh. "I'll remember you, Junwuya. With an opponent like you, this one is very happy. But it's a pity that this isn't the time. Next time, we'll fight to our heart's content." Xiatian acknowledged Junwuya's strength and also acknowledged the #1 expert of the Great Thousand World. But this time, Xiatian's ambition wasn't here. Since he acknowledged Junwuya, there would naturally be more chances to fight in the future, and there wouldn't be less. Because in the entire world, whether it was Junwuya or Xiatian, the only ones who could fight against them were the two of them. Xiatian's goal in this battle was to tear open the Great Thousand World and enter the Great Thousand World through the spatial tunnel. Because Xiatian's son was still in the Great Thousand World, he wanted to wake him up. As soon as his voice fell, he didn't wait for Junwuya to reply this time. Dense blood veins suddenly appeared behind Xiatian, and with the appearance of these blood-red lights, there were waves of pitiful screams and sinister faces that appeared. Evil Ghost Sky. He gave a soft roar, and after that, endless blood chi covered the sky as it charged at Junwuya, charging at the Great Thousand Worlds cultivators. Faced with the attack of this dense blood chi, Junwuya didn't change at all. It was true that Xiatian's attack seemed very powerful, but it didn't pose much of a threat to Junwuya. This evil ghost sky was clearly an area of effect divine ability, so it was impossible to use it to deal with Junwuya. Only, Xiatian's strange actions made Junwuya's heart filled with doubt. Xiatian definitely knew that although this evil ghost sky was strong and could instantly kill many Great Thousand Worlds cultivators, it wasn't worth mentioning to Junwuya. But even though he clearly knew this, why did Xiatian still use this kind of divine ability? He couldn't understand it. At the same time, after Xiatian used the evil ghost sky, the other evil sovereigns also made their moves. Like Xiatian, they also used area of effect divine abilities. The actions of Xiatian and the other evil sovereigns were clearly very strange, but no one thought too much about it until Xiatian said, "Next time we meet in the Great Thousand World, let's have a good fight again." After saying this, with the cover of the blood mist, the evil cultivators instantly changed their minds. It was like they were Jianyi as they charged in the direction of the Great Thousand World. Moreover, they found the weakest point and quickly tore through the Great Thousand World's defenses. At this moment, Junwuya finally realized what Xiatian's goal was. The evil cultivators wanted to break through the Great Thousand World's defenses and enter the Great Thousand World. He never would have thought that the evil cultivators' attack this time wasn't to determine victory or defeat, but rather to enter the Great Thousand World. Because they didn't have any preparations beforehand, the Great Thousand World didn't have any backup plans. Seeing their defenses being torn apart, more and more evil cultivators entered the space channel, heading into the Great Thousand World. Faced with these evil cultivators charging into the space channel, the Great Thousand World's people had no way to deal with them. Because in the space channel, they couldn't fight at all, even the Emperor Realm experts couldn't do anything. They could only watch as more and more evil cultivators entered the space channel. At the same time, Xiatian said to Junwuya with a smile at this time, "Junwuya, let's meet again in the Great Thousand World." After saying this, Xiatian's figure flashed and he also charged into the space channel. Seeing this, Junwuya immediately made a move to stop him, but it was a pity that he couldn't stop Xiatian. Regarding this, Junwuya could only helplessly sigh. With Xiatian's strength, wanting to stop him was indeed not an easy matter. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations. Chapter 2352. Xiatian had already made preparations to break out, so Junwuya was naturally helpless against him. It would be the same if it was him. Xiatian would also not be able to stop Junwuya. Although Junwuya still made a move and did his best to stop Xiatian, it was a pity that Xiatian still broke free from Junwuya's entanglement and quickly entered the spatial channel. Countless evil cultivators entered the spatial channel. Regarding this, the cultivators of the Great Thousand World were anxious and did their best to make a move, but there was nothing they could do. Moreover, what the experts of the Great Thousand World were most worried about were not the ordinary evil cultivators, but rather Xia Tian and the other evil sovereigns. They had successfully entered the spatial channel and arrived at the Great Thousand World. This was definitely a disaster for the Great Thousand World. No one had realized that the evil cultivators attacking in full force was not to fight a war with the Great Thousand World, but rather to break through the seal of the Great Thousand World and enter the Great Thousand World. The defensive line was completely torn apart and countless evil cultivators wildly rushed into the spatial channel. Not long after, the battle quickly ended. Although the Great Thousand World had killed many evil cultivators, the Great Thousand World had also paid a large price. What was more serious was that many evil cultivators, Xia Tian, and the other evil sovereigns had successfully entered the spatial channel. Leave some people to clean up the battlefield, the rest returned to the Great Thousand World. Not being able to hold the defensive line and allowing the evil cultivators to break through, Tenza spoke with a dark expression. Now that the evil cultivators had all entered the spatial channel, the experts of the Great Thousand World had to quickly return to the Great Thousand World. Otherwise, the Great Thousand World would be plunged into misery and suffering. Hearing Tenza's words, everyone no longer cared about formations. With each sect as a unit, they all drove their starships into the spatial channel. As the sect master of the Sword Sect, Xiaochen led the members of the Sword Sect into the spatial channel. Moreover, Xiaochen did not forget to send a message to Zhangxing and the others, telling them that the evil cultivators had already entered the Great Thousand World. Now that all the evil martial artists, Xia Tian, and the evil venerables had entered the Great Thousand World, the Flame Wind World was naturally not in any danger. It just so happened that it was not suitable for Zhangxing and the others to appear now. Xiaochen simply let them stay in the Flaming Wind Realm. On the one hand, they could search around the Flaming Wind Realm to see if they could find anything. On the other hand, they could also eliminate the fish that escaped the net in the Flaming Wind Realm. Without Xia Tian and the other evil sovereigns, with the strength of Zhangxing and the others, there wouldn't be any danger in the Flame Wind World. Regarding this, Xiaochen wasn't worried at all. After briefing Zhangxing and the others, Xiaochen and the others piloted the starship and quickly rushed to the Great Thousand World. At the same time, the starships of the other major forces also entered the spatial channel. As for Junwuya, Tenzu, and the other sovereigns, they had already rushed to the Great Thousand World. After entering the spatial channel, although Xiaochen and the others were anxious, there was nothing they could do. The starship was already at its fastest speed, but the spatial channel was not something that could be passed through in an instant. No matter how anxious they were, they could only wait patiently. In the cabin, everyone was sitting together in a circle. The little girl Guling Yao asked curiously, "Husband, didn't you say that no one below the sovereigns can pass through the spatial channel on their own?" Guling Yao did have this question in her heart. After all, this was a well-known fact. However, the evil martial artists just now did not even have a starship and directly rushed into the spatial channel. In this way, were they not courting death? If these evil martial artists all died in the spatial channel, wouldn't the battle between the good and evil end directly? However, would the evil martial artists be so stupid? How could they not know about such an attempt? Knowing what Guling Yao was thinking, Xiaochen smiled and said, "It's not that simple. It's indeed difficult for ordinary people to pass through the spatial channel on their own, but it's different for the evil martial artists." "What's the difference?" Guling Yao asked. On the evil martial artists' side, except for the evil sovereigns, there are only 4 of them. The evil sovereigns used a secret method to resurrect them. Therefore, they have no consciousness and are just walking corpses. Naturally, it's not a problem for them to pass through the spatial channel. If these evil martial artists really all died in the spatial channel, the sovereigns would not be so nervous. It was because the sovereigns knew that these evil martial artists were not afraid of the spatial channel at all, so they hurried back to the Great Thousand World. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Guling Yao could not help but feel a little disappointed. Is that so? But if these evil martial artists really died in the spatial channel, then that would be good. Gu Lingyao was still fantasizing that these evil martial artists would die in the spatial channel, but Xiaochen could only smile helplessly because this was simply impossible. Not only was it impossible, but after this battle, the battle between the good and evil martial artists would also completely change. In other words, all the sovereign's initial plans would be completely disrupted. As the sect master of the sword sect, Xiaochen was naturally aware of the sovereign's plans. Originally, the sovereigns wanted to set the battlefield in the Flaming Wind world and eliminate many evil martial artists in the Flaming Wind world. Otherwise, the flames of war would spread to the Great Thousand World, and this idea was proposed by Xiaochen. Unfortunately, after this battle, the Great Thousand World's defensive line had been torn apart. Countless evil Dao martial artists and evil sovereigns had seized the opportunity to enter the spatial passageway. It was impossible to stop them now. In other words, the flames of war had inevitably spread to the Great Thousand World. Xiaochen sighed and said helplessly, "This time, the Great Thousand World will inevitably be plunged into misery and suffering." When the flames of war spread to the Great Thousand World, no matter what the final outcome was, the Great Thousand World would definitely be affected. In particular, the ordinary people and martial artists in the Great Thousand World would not have the slightest ability to resist. In the face of a battle of the good and evil level, even if the sovereigns wanted to reduce their losses, they were powerless to do so. After all, the battle was already so tense, and the sovereigns were not in the mood to think about such things. As long as they could defeat the evil martial artists, the sovereigns would not think about other things. After all, the final victory was the most important. If they lost, it would not be a matter of life and death, but the entire Great Thousand World would have to submit to the pressure of the evil martial artists. At that time, it would be the real descent of hell. Therefore, no matter what, victory was the ultimate goal. As for some losses, it was estimated that they could not avoid them. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 2353. The shift of the battlefield to the Great Thousand World completely disrupted the initial arrangement of the sovereigns. A day later, at the entrance of the space passage in the Great Thousand World, originally, there were some experts guarding this place, but their cultivation was not high. After all, the real experts had already followed the sovereigns and Tenzu into the Flaming Wind realm. Moreover, these people did not seem to be nervous at all. In other words, they did not think that evil warriors would appear in the Great Thousand World. Their presence here was more of a symbolic role. Sigh, I wonder how the war in the Flaming Wind realm is going. Have the sovereigns fought with the evil master? I guess the outcome has not been decided yet, but no matter what, the war in the Flaming Wind realm should not affect the Great Thousand World. Of course. With Tenzu and the sovereigns guarding, the evil warriors will not be able to come to the Great Thousand World. In the camp, everyone sat in groups of 3 to 5. As they chatted about the battle in the Flame Wind realm, they were confident that the evil Dao cultivators would not be able to invade the Great Thousand Realms. The Great Thousand Realms were definitely safe. However, no one expected that as soon as they finished talking, a surge of blood chi suddenly spread out from the space passage leading to the Flaming Wind realm. Sensing the dense blood chi emanating from the spatial passageway, the expressions of the many cultivators guarding the spatial passageway changed drastically. These people's cultivation was not high, so they were left here to guard the space passage. Now, facing the rich blood chi that they had never felt before, these people were completely stunned. They looked in the direction of the space passage in a daze, and under everyone's gaze, an evil warrior flew out of the space passage without warning. Evil warrior. Everyone's expression froze when they saw the evil warrior. Then, they exclaimed in disbelief. Just a moment ago, they were confident that the evil warriors would not appear in the Great Thousand World, but who would have thought that an evil warrior would arrive in the Great Thousand World through the space passage just as they finished speaking? Damn it, how did this evil warrior enter the space passage? Have the sovereigns and Tenza come out? Don't be nervous. Maybe it's just a fish that slipped through the net. Let's capture him first. When the evil warriors appeared here, everyone thought that the sovereigns in Tenzu had been defeated, but after thinking about it, they felt that it was impossible. How could they have been defeated so easily? However, regardless of the reason, the current plan was to capture this evil warrior first. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. Then, they prepared to attack together and capture this evil warrior first. However, just as they were about to attack, 1, 2, 3. More and more evil path cultivators appeared in the space channel. Seeing more and more evil path cultivators appear from the space channel, everyone was dumbfounded. What's going on? What happened in the Flaming Wind realm? If the appearance of the evil martial artist was a coincidence, then the appearance of so many evil martial artists in the Great Thousand World was obviously not a coincidence. Something must have happened in the Flaming Wind world. Previously, they had been relaxed, but now, the many martial artists who were in charge of guarding the spatial passageway all had grave and frightened expressions on their faces. However, this was not the end. As more and more evil path cultivators flew out of the space channel, Zishi, Yentong, and the other evil sovereigns appeared one after another. Finally, Xia Tian's figure appeared outside the space channel. Taking a deep breath, Xia Tian revealed a smile on his face and said, "The air in the Great Thousand World is still the best. How many years has it been since I last breathed in the air of the Great Thousand World?" After saying this, Xia Tian's eyes fell on the surrounding Great Thousand World warriors. With just a glance, Xia Tian lost interest. These people were all old and weak. Their cultivation and battle strength were not good. They were a bunch of trash. Kill them and leave as soon as possible. Hearing Xia Tian's words, the evil path cultivators immediately launched an attack. Faced with such a large number of evil path cultivators and evil sovereigns, the surrounding Great Thousand World warriors were naturally powerless to fight back. In just a few moments, the surrounding Great Thousand World martial artists were all slaughtered. Xia Tian did not stop as he led a large number of evil martial artists towards the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace no longer existed and was now under the control of the Heavenly Sect. The territory that once belonged to the Dragon Palace had now become the Heavenly Palace. Moreover, Xia Tian's son was sealed in the Heavenly Palace, so Xia Tian immediately rushed in the direction of the Heavenly Palace. Not long after Xia Tian's group left, starship after starship charged out of the space channel. Experts from the Great Thousand World all flew out of the starship, and those evil path cultivators who did not have time to leave were instantly killed. However, these evil path cultivators were in the minority. The true elites of the evil path had already left with Xia Tian. The battle around the space channel was quickly calmed down, but when everyone saw that the Great Thousand World warriors who were in charge of guarding the space channel had all been killed, their faces turned dark to the extreme. There was still no way to stop the evil path cultivators. In this way, they could only fight the evil path cultivators in the Great Thousand World. More and more starship appeared from the space channel. Xiaochen stood on the deck and watched the battle that had just ended. His expression was also very ugly. At the same time, the sovereigns were also looking for traces of Xia Tian and the others. Soon, they caught the aura of Xia Tian and the others. It was clear that they were heading in the direction of the Heavenly Palace. Heavenly Palace? What are the evil path cultivators planning to do? Using the Heavenly Palace as their headquarters? It should be. After all, Tao Ming has sided with the evil path, so it's normal for him to go to the Heavenly Palace. The sovereigns spoke one after another. Tao Ming was once the old ancestor of the Heavenly Sect. Now that the evil path cultivators were heading to the Heavenly Palace, in the eyes of the sovereigns, they wanted to use the Heavenly Palace as their center. Speaking of Tao Ming's betrayal, the sovereigns gritted their teeth, but there was no other way now. After confirming the whereabouts of Xia Tian and the evil path cultivators, Tenza turned to Junwuya and asked, "How is it? Can we catch up?" "It should be very difficult. In my opinion, it's better to show respect for the battle. Evacuate the cultivators around the Heavenly Palace and seal it." Hearing this, Junwuya indifferently said, It would be very difficult to catch up with Xia Tian and the others now. It would be better to let them enter the Heavenly Palace and seal it. They would strive to control the battlefield and the Heavenly Palace. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2354. It was not the best choice to chase after Xia Tian and the others now, so when he heard Junhui's words, Tenzo also nodded in agreement. It was not the best choice to chase after Xia Tian and the others now, so when he heard Junhui's words, Tenzo also nodded in agreement. The battlefield had inevitably shifted from the Flaming Wind World to the Great Thousand World, and no one could change this. Since this was the case, they could only think of ways to minimize the losses. Junhui proposed to seal the Heavenly Mansion and lock the battlefield in the Heavenly Mansion. The other sovereigns naturally had no objections to this. Immediately, under the orders of the sovereigns, the experts of the Great Thousand World rushed to the Heavenly Mansion. Before the real battle began, the Great Thousand World needed to seal the Heavenly Mansion and move the people in and around the Heavenly Mansion to a safe place as much as possible. This way, they could fight back without any scruples. Therefore, for the time being, the Great Thousand World did not have the extra time to take the initiative to attack the evil way. The two sides arrived at the Heavenly Mansion one after the other. Wherever the evil way passed, it could be said to be a mess. Cities were massacred everywhere, and countless people died under the butcher's knife of the evil way. Xiaochen led the experts of the sword sect and also rushed to the Heavenly Mansion. Along the way, Xiaochen was also shocked. I've long heard that the evil way's experts are bloodthirsty, but I didn't expect them to be so cruel. Seeing such a scene, Guling Yao and the other two girls also had sorrowful expressions. They had seen 7 or 8 cities being massacred in a row, and there were almost no survivors. Hearing Guling Yao's words, Xiaochen sighed silently. This was the consequence of allowing the evil way's experts to enter the Great Thousand World. The defensive line was torn apart, and the evil way's experts invaded the Great Thousand World en masse. This was the price. The evil way's experts use blood qi to quickly increase their cultivation, so they must kill. Xiaochen said in a deep voice. The way the evil warriors killed was directly related to their cultivation methods. As soon as Xiaochen finished speaking, a thick blood qi kept coming out of a small town not far ahead of them. Damn it! Xiaochen knew what was going on as soon as he sensed the blood aura. Clearly, the evil warriors had begun to slaughter the city again. Cursing inwardly, Xiaochen immediately led Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and several sword sect experts away from the starship and hurried towards the small city. Since there were so many evil warriors, it was impossible for them to stay in formation all the time. After all, their target was the Hetian prefecture. Therefore, evil warriors could be seen almost everywhere in the Great Thousand World. While these evil warriors were rushing towards Hetian Mansion, they were wantonly massacring the city. However, Xiaochen happened to bump into them this time, so they had to kill them no matter what. Xiaochen sped all the way to the small city and saw the tragic state of the city at a glance. There weren't many evil warriors in this group. There were only about 700 to 800 of them. However, this small number of people was enough to turn this small city, which had a population of a few 100,000, into a living hell in an instant. Houses had collapsed, and the ground was littered with corpses. On the streets, those who were still alive were frantically fleeing. However, for them, there was almost no objection to this kind of escape. They had no cultivation to begin with, and even if they did, it was pitifully low. Therefore, it was impossible for them to escape from the evil way. Mournful screams and sorrowful cries resounded throughout the small city. Looking at all this, Xiaochen cursed angrily. What a bunch of beasts! Kill them! Without any hesitation, following Xiaochen's words, Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others released a terrifying aura that soared into the sky. A terrifying pressure instantly enveloped the entire Xiaochen. Feeling this pressure, the evil warriors couldn't help but raise their heads to look at Xiaochen and the others. However, they didn't have the ability to think and didn't know what fear was. Therefore, they didn't choose to escape. Instead, they directly attacked Xiao Chen and the others. Just like the evil warriors, the people who were still alive in the small town also looked up at the sky. When they saw Xiao Chen and the others, they couldn't help but have a glimmer of hope in their eyes. The top powers of the Great Thousand World are here. We are saved. Someone couldn't help but shout. In the face of the evil warriors, they didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. Now that they saw the top powers of the Great Thousand World, they naturally cried tears of joy. Xiao Chen and the others didn't show any mercy in the face of the attacks from the evil cultivators. The strength of this group of evil cultivators wasn't considered strong. Most of them were in the Immortal Emperor realm or Immortal Emperor realm. With such a cultivation base, they posed no threat to Xiao Chen and the others. The Sword Realm was unleashed. In an instant, more than 100 evil warriors who were enveloped by the Sword Realm were killed. The battle didn't last long. In fact, it could be said that it ended very quickly. Not long after, the group of evil warriors was killed by Xiao Chen and the others. However, although the group of evil warriors was killed, the people who died in the city couldn't be resurrected. The injuries that the evil warriors had inflicted on the people couldn't be reversed. They slowly landed in the city, which was already in ruins. As Xiao Chen and the others slowly landed, the survivors of the city quickly gathered around them. A middle-aged woman held the hand of a 7- or 8-year-old little girl. Like the others, she thanked Xiao Chen profusely. The little girl looked at Xiao Chen in fear. Facing the little girl's gaze, Xiao Chen didn't feel good. This was the consequence of war, especially a war like the war between the righteous and evil warriors. Xiao Chen held the little girl in his arms and asked gently, "Are you afraid?" Hearing this, the little girl nodded and didn't dare to speak. Seeing this, Xiao Chen said with a smile, "If you are afraid, cry it out. Cry it out and you will be fine." Perhaps because the little girl felt safe in Xiao Chen's arms, she immediately burst into tears when she heard Xiao Chen's words. Xiao Chen didn't care about the little girl's tears and snot dirtying his clothes. Holding the little girl in his arms, he looked at the people present and said in a clear voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am the headmaster of Swords Gate, Xiao Chen. The evil cultivators have all been killed, so you can rest assured. However, it is not safe here, so I suggest that you leave in the direction of the Sword Palace. Once you reach the Sword Palace, there will be people from Swords Gate who will help you settle down." Although the evil warriors were killed, this place wasn't far from the Heitian province. It wasn't safe to stay here. Therefore, Xiao Chen wanted these people to go to the Sword Sect. After all, compared to here, the Sword Sect was definitely much safer. The Sword Sect would also be responsible for settling these people down. At the very least, they wouldn't starve. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the crowd was stunned at first, but then they became excited. So its sect leader Xiao Chen from the Sword Sect, Xiao Chen's name was indeed very famous in the Great Thousand World. After all, he was one of the 10 great Lingtian sects. Even ordinary people would pay attention to him. Therefore, when they heard Xiao Chen's identity, they were even more grateful and knelt down in front of Xiao Chen. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2355. Xiao Chen and the others saved this small city, and the survivors followed Xiao Chen's instructions and began to retreat in the direction of the Sword Mansion. After all, a great battle was about to break out soon, so it was naturally not safe to stay here. Moreover, facing the evil warriors, these ordinary people did not have any ability to resist. This kind of thing, not only did Xiao Chen and the others encounter it, Dao Ju, Xiao Xiao, Li Chun, and the others also encountered it. Moreover, along the way, everyone had personally witnessed the cruelty of the evil warriors. After personally sending everyone out of the city, Xiao Chen watched everyone leave before boarding the Starry Sky ship again and continuing to rush to the Heavenly Palace. However, after experiencing the things along the way, Xiao Chen secretly made up his mind to win this battle. If the evil warriors were to win this battle, Xiao Chen could not imagine what would happen to the Great Thousand World in the end. At that time, perhaps the entire Great Thousand World would become hell, and no one would be able to escape. To prevent this from happening, only by defeating the evil warriors could they stop it. We must win. Looking in the direction of the heavenly palace, Xiaochen firmly said. They had to win this battle, they could not lose. The people of the major powers of the Great Thousand World were rushing to the heavenly palace. At the same time, in the heavenly palace, in an unknown mountain range, Xia Tian and Yen Tong were walking over. This mountain range was not special at all, it was very ordinary. Although this kind of mountain range was not everywhere in the Great Thousand World, there were at least hundreds of thousands of them. However, Xia Tian and Yen Tong had personally come here, not for anything else, but because Xia Tian's son, the evil spirits, had been sealed here in the past. In the past, Xia Tian was powerless to reverse the situation, but in order to leave behind a final hope, not only did he forcefully leave behind his own remnant soul, he even sealed his son, waiting for a chance to return to the world in the future. Now that Xia Tian had successfully revived with the help of his remnant soul, he naturally had to come here to release his son. After countless years had passed, perhaps this mountain range had undergone a heaven and earth-shattering change, not being able to see the shadow of before at all. However, Xia Tian quickly found the place where the evil spirits were sealed. In the deep valley, Xia Tian slowly walked to the center of the valley and slowly formed seals with his hands. With the seals formed by Xia Tian's hands, the ground began to tremble as rocks fell in all directions. The ground was slowly torn apart as a transparent coffin slowly rose from the ground. The coffin was translucent, and one could clearly see a handsome young man sleeping in the coffin. His eyes were closed, and no aura leaked out. It was as if he was already dead. But the person in the coffin wasn't dead, it was just a secret technique that sealed his life force and divine sense. This person was Xia Tian's only son, evil spirits. After all these years, seeing his son again, even Xia Tian couldn't help feeling a bit excited. He reached out to gently stroke the transparent light as he spoke with a pampering look in his eyes. "My son, father is back. This time father won't fail again." Father and son reunited, Xia Tian's heart was filled with emotions. As soon as his voice fell, Xia Tian began to release the seal. This seal was personally placed by him in the past, so if he wanted to release it now, naturally it wasn't a problem. Very quickly, with Xia Tian's actions, talismans flew into the air around the coffin and began to burn. As the talismans burned away, the coffin slowly opened. After a while, the evil spirits that had been sleeping for who knows how many years slowly opened their eyes. In the beginning, the evil spirits' eyes didn't have any figures, but gradually, as their consciousness slowly recovered, the evil spirits finally woke up bit by bit. Seeing the life force in the evil spirits becoming stronger, Xia Tian and Yen Tong didn't disturb them and just silently waited on the side. After 2 hours, the evil spirits finally woke up. They revealed an excited smile as they looked at Xia Tian and said, "Father, you're back." Father is back." Hearing this, Xia Tian reached out to pat the evil spirit's head as he spoke with a smile. Seeing their father again, the evil spirits were also incomparably excited. When Yen Tong on the side saw the evil spirits, he also gave a respectful bow. "Yen Tong greets Sir Xia Zi." Xia Tian was the leader of the evil martial artists and was worshipped as a god by all the evil martial artists. As Xia Tian's only son, the evil spirits were also called Xia Zi by all the evil martial artists. Among the evil martial artists, the evil spirits had a very high prestige. Even Yen Tong and the other evil sovereigns were respectful in front of the evil spirits, not daring to overstep their boundaries. Of course, being able to have such high prestige, the evil spirits didn't just rely on their status or their father Xia Tian. Rather, it was because of the evil spirits' innate talent and battle strength that allowed them to dominate the world. In the past, when the righteous and evil war was fought, the evil spirits could be considered a large change. In the younger generation of the boundless world, there was no one that could be their match. Even those so-called heaven's pride monsters of the boundless world were all defeated by the evil spirits. Although they were evil martial artists, the evil spirit's strength was enough to be called number one in the younger generation. With the evil spirits successfully awakening, Xia Tian's heart was filled with joy. The three of them talked for a bit before Yan Tong suggested, "Sir Evil God, since Xia Zi is fine, how about we return to the Evil God Palace first?" The former Heavenly Gate, which was also the Dragon Palace, had already become the evil martial artist's main camp, being called the Evil God Palace. Purple Snake and the other evil sovereigns were currently waiting in the Evil God Palace. Hearing this, Xia Tian said with a faint smile, "All right, Ming'er, come back with father." "Yes." Hearing this, the evil spirits replied in a soft voice. Following this, the three of them charged into the sky. At this time, from the aura that came from the evil spirits, he was actually at the small perfection end realm. Moreover, he was just a step away from breaking through to the great perfection end realm. Small perfection end realm, in terms of cultivation, the evil spirits could suppress Xiao Chen and the others. After all, Xiao Chen and the others were only at the large perfection end realm, and there was a difference in cultivation between them and the evil spirits. Moreover, don't look at the difference of a small realm. Who was the evil spirits? The Xia Zi of the evil path wanted to jump realms to challenge him. After all, to be able to have the same prestige as his father, the evil spirits naturally weren't idiots. He could jump realms to challenge others. So, in a situation where their cultivations weren't the same, it was impossible to jump realms to defeat the evil spirits. On the way back, the evil spirits said in a curious voice, "Father, can you tell me about the situation of the large world?" Let's talk about this when we get back." Hearing this, Xia Tian revealed a faint smile. No one knew a son better than his father. Xia Tian naturally knew his son's temper and also understood what the evil spirits were thinking. So, he smiled and said this. Xia Tian didn't say anything else. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2356. Xia Tian had successfully awakened his only son, the evil spirits. The father and son and Yan Tong returned to the Evil God Palace together. When the three of them arrived at the Evil God Palace, Purple Snake, Chi Mei, and the other evil sovereigns were already waiting for them. They came to the main hall. This place used to belong to the Heaven Closing sect, but it was now the Evil God Palace's territory. Inside the main hall, Xia Tian was sitting in the main seat with the evil spirits and the other evil cultivators below him. Seeing the evil spirits awaken, the evil sovereigns all respectfully bowed. At the same time, they had smiles that were hard to hide on their faces. Even Tao Ming had to bow to the evil spirits. Tao Ming naturally didn't have any understanding of the name Xia Tian, so he wasn't as respectful as the other evil sovereigns. However, the situation forced him, and although he didn't care about the evil spirits, Tao Ming didn't dare show it at all. To be honest, in Tao Ming's eyes, the evil spirits were just a junior. To have him bow to a junior like Yang Chen, Tao Ming naturally wasn't willing to accept this. Everyone sat down and Xia Tian said with a smile, "How is it in the Great Thousand World? What else can they do? They've surrounded the Heaven Closing sect. I think they want to kill us in the Heaven Closing sect, otherwise the flames of war would spread too far." Hearing this, Chi Mei said with a faint smile. This was indeed a very charming woman, but the people sitting here weren't affected at all. Hearing this, Xia Tian also said with a faint smile, "I already expected them to do this, but whether they can do it or not will depend on their skills. Wanting to destroy my evil path in the Heaven Closing sect, they really dare think about it." Xia Tian wanted to awaken his son, the evil spirits. Now that the evil spirits had awakened, it was time for the true decisive battle. Moreover, after the battlefield changed from the Flame Wind World to the Great Thousand World, Tenzu and the other emperors weren't as relaxed as before. Both sides would enter the rhythm of a life and death battle. But this was something that couldn't be avoided. As soon as his voice fell, Xia Tian paused before saying, "Then let's begin. Let's see who the final winner is." It was impossible not to fight. As soon as his voice fell, Xia Tian didn't say anything else. Everyone prepared to leave, But when everyone stood up and was about to leave, Xia Tian suddenly said to Tao Ming, "Tao Ming, you were the Emperor Venerable of the Great Thousand World before, so you have a good understanding of the Great Thousand World. My son has just woken up, so tell him the situation of the Great Thousand World." On the way here, the evil spirits had asked about the current situation of the boundless world, but Xia Tian didn't answer him at that time. He wanted Tao Ming to personally explain to the evil spirits since Tao Ming was a traitor from the boundless world, so he naturally understood the boundless world the best. Hearing Xia Tian's words, Tao Ming did not dare reject and could only reply with a bow. This subordinate obeys. Tao Ming's attitude was very respectful, and in response, the evil spirits also gave a slight nod. The evil spirits' eyes also fell onto Tao Ming at this time. With Xia Tian's orders, the evil spirits and Tao Ming left the main hall together. While walking towards the evil spirit's residence, Tao Ming explained the situation of the Great Thousand World to the evil spirits. However, before he could finish, the evil spirits interrupted Tao Ming. "I'm not interested in what you're saying. Let's talk about the younger generation. Who is the strongest person in the Great Thousand World's younger generation?" Tao Ming had been talking about Tenzu and the emperors the entire way. It was clear that the evil spirits didn't care about this at all. In the eyes of the evil spirits, whether it was Tenzu or the emperors, they were all their father's opponents. The evil spirits' opponents were the monstrous geniuses of the Great Thousand World. In the past, the evil spirits had beaten the monstrous geniuses of the current generation into submission. After so many years, the evil spirits also wanted to see how strong the new generation of monstrous geniuses of the Great Thousand World were. Being interrupted by the evil spirits without any politeness, Tao Ming was naturally a little unhappy in his heart. However, he didn't dare say anything and just revealed a smile. There are only a few people in the Great Thousand World who are qualified to be called monstrous geniuses, and almost all of them are the sect masters of the 10 Great Ling Tian sects. They are all very strong, but there is no clear ranking for who is the strongest. However, this subordinate thinks that Xiao Chen should be the strongest among them. Tao Ming deliberately mentioned Xiao Chen's name not because he thought highly of Xiao Chen. On the contrary, Tao Ming wanted to get rid of him with a borrowed knife. Although he hadn't been in contact with the evil spirits for a long time, Tao Ming felt that the evil spirits were very competitive and even a little arrogant. From Tao Ming's performance in various actions, it wasn't difficult to see that the evil spirits looked down on the monstrous geniuses of the Great Thousand World. In the eyes of the evil spirits, they had always felt that the monstrous geniuses of the Great Thousand World were not worthy of being on equal footing with them. Otherwise, how could they have beaten up the monstrous geniuses of the Great Thousand World? Xiao Chen. Oh, in your opinion, is he really the strongest among the monstrous geniuses? The evil spirits softly muttered Xiao Chen's name and asked with disdain. Upon hearing the evil spirit's words, Tao Ming immediately nodded and said, "Indeed, in my opinion, the evil spirits can indeed be called the strongest among the younger generation. Even my disciple might not be a match for him." Tao Ming's disciple was naturally Yang Chen. The evil spirits smiled in response, but before they could say anything, Yang Chen happened to walk over from afar. When he saw Tao Ming, Yang Chen bowed respectfully and said, "Master." The evil spirits had just mentioned that Yang Chen wasn't a match for Xiao Chen a second ago, and now Yang Chen had appeared on his own. Hearing Yang Chen call Tao Ming master, the evil spirits glanced at Yang Chen indifferently and then spat out 2 words. And even though the phantasms had been in hibernation for countless years, they had been completely sealed during this period of time, so they hadn't grown at all. Therefore, the phantasms could be considered as members of the younger generation. At this time, they actually called him an ant without any hesitation. When had Yang Chen ever been looked down upon by someone of the same generation? He immediately looked at the evil spirits with an unkind expression and said, "Who are you calling an ant?" Yang Chen was also a proud person, so his heart was filled with anger. However, at this time, Tao Ming immediately shouted out in a cold voice, "Audacious, this is Sir Xie." "Yang Chen, don't be rude." Tao Ming did not like the arrogance of the evil spirits, but there was no other way. people under the eaves had to lower their heads. Yang Chen was currently looking at the evil spirits with an unkind gaze. If he angered the evil spirits, what would happen to Xie Tian's side? It had to be known that Tao Ming had just joined the evil path and his foundation was not stable. If he wasn't careful, all his previous efforts would be wasted. So, Tao Ming could only tuck his tail between his legs. However, the evil spirits did not seem to care about Yang Chen's attitude. Hearing Yang Chen's words, the evil spirits softly asked, "Just now, your master said that you are also a heavenly genius of the boundless world, but you can't compare to Xiao Chen. Is that true?" Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation. Chapter 2357. Yang Chen didn't like Phantasm very much, but because of Phantasm's status, Yang Chen didn't dare to lose his temper. In Yang Chen's opinion, Phantasm was about the same age as him, but the way he treated him was very disdainful, as if he were treating a servant. Even so, upon hearing Phantasm's words, Yang Chen suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "I've never lost to Xiao Chen. Our strength should be on par." Yang Chen's eyes flashed coldly when he heard the evil spirits mention Xiao Chen. After fighting with Xiao Chen so many times, Yang Chen had long regarded Xiao Chen as his greatest enemy. It was impossible for Yang Chen to admit that he was inferior to Xiao Chen. Yang Chen refused to admit that he was inferior to Xiao Chen. The evil spirits said faintly, "If that's the case, then it's disappointing. It seems that the younger generation of the Great Thousand World are all ants." The evil spirits would be disappointed if Xiao Chen's combat strength was on par with Yang Chen's. They had never seen Xiao Chen before, but Yang Chen was right in front of them. If their strength was on par, then the evil spirits had nothing to look forward to. There was a strong sense of disappointment in their words, as if the evil spirits were disappointed that their opponent was too weak. Yang Chen's eyes flashed coldly. Among his peers, he had never been looked down upon like this. Even Dao Ju and the others had never looked down on him like this. As a supreme talent of the Great Thousand World, Yang Chen naturally had his own pride. He obviously could not swallow the fact that he was looked down upon by his peers, so he snorted coldly. "Humph, don't underestimate the supreme talents of the Great Thousand World. Otherwise, you'll be the one suffering." Although Yang Chen did not dare to do anything to the evil spirits, he still retorted when the evil spirits humiliated him like this. However, the evil spirits did not care about this at all. They only looked at Yang Chen with evil smiles. "You think the geniuses of the vast thousand domains are very strong? At least it's not as bad as you think," Yang Chen said coldly to the evil spirits. Seeing that Yang Chen was not convinced, the evil spirits said, "Since that's the case, I'll let you understand that in my eyes, the geniuses of the Great Thousand World are just a bunch of chickens and dogs." As soon as the evil spirits said this, Yang Chen's gaze instantly turned cold. The evil spirits were also concerned about this and laughed. "Make your move. Since you were once a genius of the Great Thousand World and your strength is on par with Xiao Chen, then let me see how strong a genius of the Great Thousand World is." The evil spirits gestured for Yang Chen to attack. Yang Chen was stunned, but the anger in his heart made it impossible for him to refuse. He was very clear about the identity of the evil spirits. However, if it was just a spar, there was nothing wrong with it. Therefore, Yang Chen nodded his head and agreed. "Okay." The evil spirits took the initiative to spar with Yang Chen, and Yang Chen agreed. Originally, Yang Chen wanted to go to the fighting arena, but the evil spirits directly refused. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. Anyway, it's just a matter of a few moves." The evil spirits did not agree to go to the fighting arena because it would end very quickly and Yang Chen was too weak. Naturally, these words made Yang Chen even angrier. From the beginning to the end, the evil spirits did not even look at him directly. Seeing this, Yang Chen was completely enraged. He looked coldly at the evil spirits and said, "Then I'll offend you. Don't worry, no matter if I win or lose, I will not target you. This Xie is not that weak." Hearing this, the evil spirits said, Hearing the evil spirit's words, Yang Chen did not say anything else. A terrifying aura rose from his body. At the same time, because of the evil spirit's disdain, Yang Chen decided to let them know that he was not an ant. Therefore, Yang Chen immediately used his Thunder King physique. Thunder King physique? Barely passable. The evil spirits saw through Yang Chen's Thunder King physique at a glance, but they were not shocked at all. They only described it as not bad. The evil spirits were looking down on him everywhere, and Yang Chen could not stand it the most. Therefore, when he heard the evil spirit's words, Yang Chen said in a deep voice, "Xiazi, be careful. Come." After saying this, Yang Chen's feet moved. His body instantly appeared in front of the evil spirits and fiercely punched out. In the face of Yang Chen's punch, the evil spirits did not dodge. There was no terrifying aura on their bodies. They slowly stretched out their hands and easily caught Yang Chen's punch. He had already used his Thunder King physique. Moreover, it was an attack filled with anger. He did not hold back at all. However, his punch was easily caught by the evil spirits. Facing such an outcome, Yang Chen naturally did not expect it. His face revealed a shocked expression. The evil spirits did not immediately attack. Instead, they directly let go of Yang Chen's fist and said indifferently, "It's even worse than I thought." Again. His words were still filled with disdain, but this time, Yang Chen didn't dare to be careless. The fact that Phantasm was able to withstand his punch with such ease made Yang Chen realize how powerful Phantasm was. It could be said that Phantasm was the strongest person he had ever met in his generation. Thunder King physique. With a deep roar, Yang Chen directly used his strongest move, the Thunder King physique. Previously, when he fought with Xiaochen in Tong City, Yang Chen used the Thunder King physique. In the end, both sides suffered heavy injuries. The Thunder King physique was Yang Chen's strongest move. However, it was still the same. The evil spirit's expression did not change. Once again, Yang Chen threw a punch at the evil spirits. In the face of Yang Chen's punch, the evil spirits also unhurriedly stretched out their hands. However, this time, the palm of the evil spirits was surrounded by a dense blood aura. At the same time, an aura that far exceeded Yang Chen soared into the sky from the evil spirit's body. As the fist and palm collided, Yang Chen's fist was once again caught by the evil spirits. At the same time, a huge force engulfed Yang Chen's body and sent him flying. 2 moves. In just 2 moves, Yang Chen was defeated by the evil spirits. Moreover, it was under the condition that he used the Thunder King physique. Moreover, Yang Chen keenly noticed that the evil spirits did not even move half a step from the beginning to the end. Their feet seemed to be rooted to the ground, firmly standing on the same spot. Yang Chen used his full strength, but in the end, he did not even have the ability to make the evil spirits move half a step. Although Yang Chen still had the strength to fight, this result made Yang Chen realize that there was a huge gap in strength between him and the evil spirits. The evil spirits did not attack again. They stood with their hands behind their back and looked at Yang Chen indifferently. Somewhat disappointing. After saying that, the evil spirits left with their hands behind their back. However, after taking a few steps, the evil spirits opened their mouth and said, "From now on, you will be by my side." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2358. The evil spirits defeated Yang Chen in 2 moves. Yang Chen was still in shock when he heard what the evil spirits said. Yang Chen had always been very confident in his talent and combat strength. Even when facing Xiaochen, Yang Chen didn't feel that he was inferior in any way. However, when facing the evil spirits, Yang Chen felt powerless for the first time in his life. Although it was only 2 moves, Yang Chen knew very well that it wouldn't be difficult for the evil spirits to defeat him. They were about the same age, but the strength of the evil spirits was enough to crush Yang Chen. Yang Chen found it hard to accept, or rather, he didn't want to accept. Because of this, Yang Chen didn't pay any attention to the phantasm's words. The phantasm didn't seem to care about this either. As soon as he finished speaking, he strode away without waiting for Yang Chen's response. After exchanging blows with Yang Chen, the evil spirits had a preliminary understanding of the current younger generation of the Great Thousand World. To be honest, Yang Chen's strength had disappointed the evil spirits. There's no way to compare with that group of people back then. The evil spirits sighed softly as they returned to their residence alone. In the great battle between the good and evil back then, the evil spirits had suppressed all the geniuses in the Great Thousand World. However, at that time, any one of the geniuses in the Great Thousand World was much stronger than Yang Chen. If what Yang Chen said was true, then the geniuses in the Great Thousand World were indeed far from what they had been back then. Even those monstrous geniuses back in the day were no match for the phantasms, let alone Yang Chen and the others. The evil spirits looked at the distant horizon with a trace of reminiscence in their eyes. Wu Di, will there be another genius like you in this world who will fight with me again? Wu Di was publicly acknowledged as the #1 genius of the younger generation in the Great Thousand World during the great battle between the good and evil. He was also the only one who could contend with the evil spirits. However, in the end, he was still defeated by the evil spirits. However, the evil spirits had never admitted that they had defeated Wu Di. They had always insisted that they were evenly matched with Wu Di. Moreover, the evil spirits didn't seem to be happy about defeating Wu Di. As soon as he finished speaking, the phantasm seemed to recall his final battle with Wu Di. That was the last time the two of them had fought, and also the last time Wu Di had made a move. After that battle, it was rumored that Wu Di had been killed by the phantasm. However, the evil spirits knew very well that this wasn't the case. Wu Di was the only person they had ever met who could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. However, in the final battle, Wu Di was ambushed by an evil cultivator at the most crucial moment. The evil spirits hadn't noticed and had used their full strength to kill Wu Di. If not for that ambush, Wu Di, perhaps you wouldn't have died. Thinking of this, the evil spirits' eyes exploded with towering hatred. They hated that evil cultivator for ambushing Wu Di. After the battle, the evil spirits had indeed personally killed that evil cultivator. The evil spirits didn't allow anyone to interfere in their battle with Wu Di. With the evil spirits' pride, they didn't need to rely on such despicable methods to defeat Wu Di. If they wanted to win, they had to win fair and square. Not to mention, the evil spirits and Wu Di weren't purely enemies. They were friends and enemies, and they admired each other. Therefore, the evil spirits wouldn't allow Wu Di to lose to them in such a humiliating manner. This was an insult to Wu Di, and also an insult to themselves. Thinking back to the past, the hatred in their hearts was still difficult to quell. However, everything had already happened, and there was no way to change it. The evil spirits let out a mouthful of turbid air and bitterly smiled. It seems that I was wrong. There is no more Wu Di in this world. After saying that, Yang Chen walked into the courtyard. When he saw the evil spirits looking at the sky with their hands clasped behind their backs, Yang Chen didn't know why, but his heart trembled, and he even involuntarily knelt down. Yang Chen pays his respects to Xiazi. This kneeling wasn't because of the evil spirit's identity, but because of the aura that the evil spirits had inadvertently revealed. Yang Chen was shocked, but at the same time, he was completely convinced. He had never felt such an aura from a young man before. Was this a sovereign descending to the world? Yang Chen couldn't help but think in his heart. Just now, the evil spirits gave him the feeling of a sovereign descending to the world. Moreover, the evil spirits seemed to be able to control people's hearts, making them unconsciously submit to them. After hearing Yang Chen's words, the evil spirits came back to their senses. They glanced indifferently at Yang Chen, who was kneeling on the ground, and said without the slightest change in their expressions, "Get up, I don't like these empty formalities. In the future, if there is no need, you don't have to kneel down. You don't have to be restrained when you follow me, and you can do whatever you want." The evil spirits didn't have the slightest bit of arrogance, but the more they acted this way, the more Yang Chen was convinced. Yangchen nodded respectfully, then slowly got up. Go and get some maids and servants. The evil spirits had just awakened, and there were no maids by his side. Hearing this, Yangchen nodded and strode out of the courtyard. They didn't know about the news of the evil spirit's reappearance. At this time, outside the Hetian mansion, after a discussion among the sovereigns, the major forces of the Great Thousand World had launched an attack on the Hetian mansion. The sovereigns knew very well that it was impossible to defeat the evil cultivators in one go, and they could only wear them down slowly. At the same time, the evil cultivators must also know about this, so it would be a long battle of life and death for them. Moreover, since the entire Hetian mansion had been controlled by the evil cultivators, the battlefield was divided into 9, with the Sword Sect and other Ling Tian sects taking charge. As the sect leader of the Sword Sect, Xiaochen was naturally in charge of one of the battlefields. As for the sovereigns, they were in the middle, guarding against the evil cultivator. The only role of Junwuya and the other sovereigns was to fight against the evil cultivator, so they wouldn't take action unless the evil cultivator took action. Leading the many experts of the Sword Sect, Xiaochen and the others entered the Hetian mansion. At this time, the Hetian mansion was completely different from before. The sky was filled with blood clouds, and the spiritual energy between heaven and earth was extremely mixed, filled with the smell of blood. The spiritual energy is so mixed. These evil cultivators can even change the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. They just mix the blood chi into the spiritual energy. You might think it's mixed, but to the evil cultivators, this is the purest spiritual energy. Because of the different cultivation methods, the spiritual energy required by the evil cultivators was very different from that of the orthodox cultivators. The spiritual energy that the evil cultivators liked the most was the spiritual energy that seemed mixed but was filled with the smell of blood. This kind of spiritual energy was simply a great supplement for the evil cultivators. Refining this kind of spiritual energy could allow the evil cultivators' cultivation to improve rapidly, and this was the fundamental reason why there were so many experts among the evil cultivators. I'm not feeling well, so I'll only write 2 chapters today. After taking the medicine, I'm drowsy and can't hold on any longer. Brothers, please forgive me. I'll return to 4 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 2359. Xiaochen and the others walked towards the depths of the Hetian mansion. The evil path cultivators in the outer regions had mostly been cleared out. Now, they were gradually entering the depths of the Hetian mansion. Xiaochen and the others walked towards the depths of the Hetian mansion. The evil path cultivators in the outer regions had mostly been cleared out. Now, they were gradually entering the depths of the Hetian mansion. However, as they went deeper, the number of evil path cultivators around them increased. Moreover, their strength also increased. Once again, they clashed with a group of evil path cultivators. After an intense battle, although they managed to kill this group of evil path cultivators, the Sword Sect also suffered casualties. Bring back those who have died. After cleaning up the battlefield, Xiaochen said to everyone. Those who were heavily injured or had already died naturally couldn't continue fighting. They could only bring them back to the Sword Sect's encampment to recuperate. After saying that, Xiaochen turned his head to look at the corpses on the ground. He muttered softly, there are already end-realm evil path cultivators. The place where Xiaochen and the others were at was far from the core of the Hetian mansion. They were still in the outer regions. However, even so, Xiaochen and the others had already started to encounter end-realm evil path cultivators. After this series of battles, Xiaochen also had a more comprehensive understanding of the strength of the evil path cultivators. There were definitely a lot of evil path cultivators. Compared to the Great Thousand World, there were even more end-realm almighties. Moreover, there seemed to be more end-realm almighties than the Great Thousand World. Of course, what gave Xiaochen the biggest headache was that these evil path cultivators were like walking corpses. They didn't have any intelligence at all. They didn't know fear or pain. For example, in this battle, Xiao Chen's group of tens of thousands of people had encountered a few hundred evil path cultivators. These evil path cultivators actually dared to take the initiative to attack. In the end, dozens of people from the Sword sect were killed and hundreds of people were heavily injured. Due to the fact that they were resurrected using a secret technique, these evil warriors were indeed very difficult to deal with. The sovereign's intention was to attack the Hetian mansion from different directions and slowly erode the strength of the evil warriors. However, the closer they got to the core of the Hetian mansion, the stronger the resistance Xiao Chen and the others encountered. Xiao Chen felt somewhat grave. This battle with the evil Dao cultivators would not be easy. However, this was an order from the sovereigns. Naturally, Xiao Chen did not have the right to refuse. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Chen asked, "We shouldn't be far from Tomb City, right?" Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xian Yuan Ling, who was at the side, opened his mouth and replied, "Yes, if there are no accidents, we'll arrive in 4 hours." Mausoleum City was Xiao Chen's first target. From the very beginning, Xiao Chen had gone straight for Mausoleum City. He planned to take Mausoleum City and use it as the headquarters of the Sword sect in Hetian province. After resting for a while, Xiao Chen led his people to continue advancing towards Mausoleum City. No matter what, Mausoleum City had to be taken. While Xiao Chen and the others were attacking Mausoleum City, on the other side, the evil warriors were naturally facing the attack of the Great Thousand World. Naturally, they could not remain indifferent. They knew that the Great Thousand World had divided the Hetian mansion into 9 battlefields led by the 9 Great Ling Tian sects to attack Hetian province at the same time. For this reason, the evil warriors were also in charge of the 9 evil sovereigns. It just so happened that Qi Mei was in charge of the Sword sect's battlefield. Within the evil god palace, Qi Mei already knew that the Sword sect was about to attack Mausoleum City. In a luxurious palace, Qi Mei reclined on the bed. In front of her was a cultivator from the Great Thousand World. Following the arrival of the evil path, many cultivators in Hetian province had chosen to surrender. This person in front of her was one of them. In order to survive, he had surrendered to the evil path. He did not dare to raise his head to look at Qi Mei because he knew how terrifying this woman was. In just a few days, tens of thousands of men had died at her hands. However, even if this person did not dare to look at Qi Mei, he still felt his mouth go dry in the face of Qi Mei's temptation. Only by calming himself down could he maintain a trace of clarity. This person's strength was not weak. He was at the comprehension realm and was now working under Qi Mei. Seeing this person's nervous appearance, Qi Mei smiled. "What, are you nervous?" Her voice was so soft that it could make one's imagination run wild. However, this person was incomparably nervous. "No, no. Haha, don't worry, I won't eat you. You said that the Sword sect is about to reach Mausoleum City?" Qi Mei smiled in response. Qi Mei had naturally been paying attention to the Sword sect's movements. She was in charge of the battle against the Sword sect, so she had already made preparations. In response to Qi Mei's question, the person respectfully nodded. Seeing this, Qi Mei waved her hand, indicating for him to withdraw. The Sword sect was about to reach Mausoleum City. Qi Mei's smile became even more charming. She softly muttered, "Mausoleum City is not a bad place. It's not bad to use it to destroy the Sword sect." She had long since set up an ambush in Mausoleum City, waiting for Xiao Chen and the others to arrive. Under Qi Mei's deliberate planning, there were no less than 100,000 evil path cultivators around Mausoleum City. As long as Xiao Chen and the others dared to enter Mausoleum City, Qi Mei would be able to surround them and kill them. Qi Mei guessed that Xiao Chen and the others would definitely attack Mausoleum City. However, at the same time, Xiao Chen also guessed that Qi Mei would set up an ambush around Mausoleum City. However, even though both sides knew about this, they still went to Mausoleum City as usual. Because no matter what, Xiao Chen had to take Mausoleum City. Therefore, even though he knew that there was an ambush in Mausoleum City, Xiao Chen couldn't shrink back. it could be imagined that there would be an earth-shaking battle in Mausoleum City. However, it was unknown whether Qi Mei would exterminate the Sword Sect in Mausoleum City or whether Xiao Chen would lead the Sword Sect to successfully take Mausoleum City. 4 hours wasn't a long journey. Soon, Xiao Chen and the others saw the outline of Mausoleum City in the distance. However, they weren't in a hurry to attack. Xiao Chen first let everyone rest and reorganize, then asked Xian Yuanling, "Big brother, are the others ready?" This time, the Sword Sect wasn't the only force on the Sword Sect side to attack Heavenly Gate. There were other forces affiliated to the Sword Sect that were participating as well. However, only the experts of the Sword Sect were present. Xiao Chen gave the other forces other tasks. Xian Yuanling nodded slightly in response to Xiao Chen's question. "Everything is ready. We can act at any time." Hearing Xian Yuanling's words, Xiao Chen turned his head and began to size up the entire Mausoleum City. After a long while, Xiao Chen softly muttered to himself, "Mausoleum City is really a suitable place for an ambush. It's almost impossible to survive. However, it's precisely because of this that Mausoleum City must be taken." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2360. Looking at Mausoleum City, Xiao Chen couldn't help sighing. Mausoleum City was truly a place where one man could hold off 10,000 enemies. It was a city that had to be fought for. Because of this, Xiao Chen had clearly guessed that the corrupt path would have a large number of troops stationed here, but he still insisted on attacking Mausoleum City. Looking at Mausoleum City, Xiao Chen couldn't help sighing. Mausoleum City was truly a place where one man could hold off 10,000 enemies. It was a city that had to be fought for. Because of this, Xiao Chen had clearly guessed that the corrupt path would have a large number of troops stationed here, but he still insisted on attacking Mausoleum City. Once Mausoleum City was captured, it would be tantamount to hammering a nail into the Hetian Prefecture. At that time, the Sword Sect would be able to turn Mausoleum City into an impregnable pass that could be used to attack or retreat. As for those disciples who were injured in battle, they wouldn't need to withdraw from the Hetian Prefecture at any time. They could directly recuperate in Mausoleum City. Surrounded by mountains on both sides, there was only one path into Mausoleum City. At the same time, following this path would allow one to smoothly enter the Hetian Prefecture. This was also why Mausoleum City was so important. "This city has to be captured. It's the northern barrier of the Hetian Prefecture," said Long Qing. The Hetian Prefecture had once been the territory of the Dragon Palace. Long Qing was naturally even more clear about Mausoleum City's function. Although it was called a city, it was more like an impregnable pass that guarded the northern barrier of the Hetian Prefecture. If they wanted to destroy the corrupt path and attack the evil God Palace, they had to capture this impregnable pass. Hearing Long Qing's words, Xiao Chen nodded heavily. Mausoleum City had to be captured. For this, no matter what price they had to pay, they couldn't shrink back. Everything had already been prepared. Xiao Chen had Xian Yuanling make the arrangements to attack Mausoleum City. Xiao Chen gave the order to attack. Within Mausoleum City, there were already tens of thousands of corrupt path cultivators waiting in formation. Furthermore, there were even more corrupt path cultivators in the mountains on both sides. These were naturally Qi Mei's handiwork. She knew that Xiao Chen was determined to take Mausoleum City. How could she not want to completely destroy the Sword Sect in Mausoleum City? Therefore, this time, Qi Mei completely used the Mausoleum City as a bait, waiting for Xiao Chen to attack, and a huge encirclement would be formed, completely blocking the retreat of Sword's Gate. Both sides could see the importance of the Mausoleum City, and had also set up a large number of troops there. However, it was still unknown who would emerge victorious in the end. However, it was undeniable that the battle in the Mausoleum City was incomparably bitter. Xiao Chen gave the order to attack, and the members of the Sword Sect immediately launched an attack on Mausoleum City. Many experts of the Sword Sect rushed towards Mausoleum City, and at the same time, the evil warriors in Mausoleum City also met them. Both sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. As expected, this Mausoleum City isn't so easy to take down. Just looking at the evil warriors in Mausoleum City, Xiaochen knew that this battle wasn't going to be easy. Different from the evil warriors he faced before, the evil warriors in Mausoleum City were the elites of the evil path. They weren't weak, and there were many End Realm experts. At this moment, Xiaochen was facing 3 End Realm evil warriors alone. Long Qing and Xianyuan Ling were the same. However, even so, the Sword Sect didn't have much of an advantage in terms of End Realm experts. 3 End Realm evil warriors surrounded Xiaochen. 2 of them were at the End Realm, and 1 was at the small End Realm. Moreover, as the 3 of them didn't have any intelligence, their attacks were extremely vicious. At the same time, they weren't afraid of casualties. Xiaochen naturally wouldn't exchange injuries with them. After all, in the current situation, Xiaochen would definitely be at a disadvantage. Once his injuries were too heavy, the situation would be dangerous. While fighting, Xiaochen was looking for a chance to kill one of them. However, just as both sides were fighting, terrifying blood energy surged into the sky from the mountain ranges on both sides. Ambush. There were evil path people lying in ambush on both sides of the mountain ranges. However, Xiaochen's expression didn't change at all. How could Xiaochen not be prepared to take down Mausoleum City? As expected, not long later, a huge battle erupted on both sides of the mountain ranges. These people were all subordinate powers of the Sword Sect, and Xiaochen had specially arranged for them to be here. Before attacking, Xiaochen had already understood the geography of Mausoleum City. He knew that it was easy to defend and hard to attack. Moreover, there were mountain ranges on both sides, and it was pretty much a natural protection. So, he predicted that the evil path would set up mansion soldiers on both sides of the mountain ranges. Xiaochen also ordered the various subordinate powers of the Sword Sect to head to the mountain ranges on both sides of Mausoleum City to delay the evil path cultivators. As for the Sword Sect, they would directly attack and fight with the evil path cultivators. His judgment was not wrong. There were indeed ambushes on both sides of the mountain range. Now, the experts of the various affiliated forces were already engaged in a fierce battle with the evil cultivators. Therefore, the ambush set up by the evil cultivators on both sides of the mountain range would not affect Sword's Gate for the time being. However, no matter if it was Xiaochen or Qi Mei, these were just small tricks. What happened next would depend on the strength of both sides. After all the scheming, in the end, they still had to fight with their real weapons. Whether or not they could successfully take down the Mausoleum City would still depend on Sword's Gate's own capabilities. They had already used all their methods, and now it would be a direct battle of strength. Not bothering about the battle on both sides of the mountain ranges, Xiaochen's gaze landed on the 3 End Realm evil path cultivators. They have 6 more End Realm experts than the Sword Sect. Xiaochen muttered with a solemn expression. Including himself, Xianyuan Ling, and Long Qing, they were all fighting 1 against 3. In a situation where they were holding up 9 End Realm experts, the evil path had 6 more End Realm experts than the Sword Sect. At this moment, these 6 End Realm experts could be said to have no one stopping them, and they were wantonly slaughtering the Sword Sect disciples. 6 End Realm evil path cultivators were existences that couldn't be ignored. Naturally, they couldn't allow them to do as they pleased. Song Xing and the others were still in the Flame Wind world, so the number of End Realm experts in the Sword Sect was naturally lesser. However, he had no choice. This was what Xiaochen had planned from the start. Now, he could only try his best to hold back these 6 End Realm evil path cultivators. Thinking about this, Xiaochen looked at the 3 people in front of him, and a cold intent flashed in his eyes. At the same time, he directly used the Sword World, and his aura rose to the peak. He had to quickly deal with the 3 in front of him and then block the other 6. Otherwise, the 6 End Realm evil path cultivators would be a disaster for the Sword Sect. This was because normal Sword Sect disciples weren't the opponents of these End Realm evil path cultivators. Even the elders and sword sect elders wouldn't be able to block them. He directly attacked, and the sword world was pushed to the extreme by Xiaochen. Terrifying sword energy crazily raged. Facing the pressure and attacks of the sword world, the three evil path cultivators didn't retreat and instead attacked Xiaochen. Seeing this, Xiaochen didn't retreat and instead advanced. He held the Wuchen sword in his hand and coldly hollered, "Great, I will kill one first." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2361. Facing the attacks of three End Realm Evil Path experts, Xiaochen didn't retreat. He held the Wuchen sword and charged towards one of them. Facing the attacks of three End Realm Evil Path experts, Xiaochen didn't retreat. He held the Wuchen sword and charged towards one of them. If he had time, Xiaochen definitely wouldn't choose to fight like this. After all, with Xiaochen's strength, even if he was surrounded by three people, he would still be able to win. However, there wasn't enough time. There were 6 other End Realm Evil Path experts that no one could stop. Therefore, Xiaochen had to get rid of the 3 people in front of him in the shortest amount of time. Because there wasn't enough time, Xiaochen could only choose to fight head-on. Although he might be injured, this way, he would be able to kill the 3 of them in the shortest amount of time. Xiaochen had to kill the 3 of them in the shortest amount of time even if he was injured. At the same time, facing Xiaochen's attacks, the 3 evil path experts weren't afraid at all. They didn't have any intelligence and only knew how to listen to orders. Qimei's orders were to defend Mausoleum City to the death and kill all enemies. Therefore, when Xiaochen took the initiative to attack, the 3 of them didn't dodge. The 3 evil path experts attacked at the same time. 3 attacks landed on Xiaochen at almost the same time. Facing the attacks of the 3, Xiaochen's eyes narrowed. Normally, Xiaochen could easily dodge their attacks. However, now, Xiaochen didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he chose to take it head-on. This was because once he chose to dodge, although Xiaochen wouldn't be able to attack, he would lose the chance to attack. Time didn't allow for it, so he could only exchange injuries for a life. His eyes became colder and colder. Xiaochen took the attacks of the 3 people head-on. The blood in his body surged. However, Xiaochen grabbed this opportunity and slashed out. He directly used the Emperor's sword. The moment Xiaochen attacked, he used the Emperor's sword. An azure sword light flashed. At such a close distance, the evil Dao cultivator that Xiaochen had locked onto had no chance of dodging. That evil cultivator had indeed tried to defend himself, but he had been unable to defend himself. The Emperor's sword had easily broken through the evil cultivator's defense. Immediately after, that evil cultivator had been severely injured. However, Xiaochen clearly did not want to be severely injured. Therefore, when the Emperor's sword was slashed out, Xiaochen did not stop his movements. At this moment, the evil warrior who had just been severely injured by the Emperor's sword did not even have time to react before Xiaochen had already appeared behind him. With a flick of his sword, he directly chopped off the evil warrior's head. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. In just a few breaths of time, Xiaochen had successfully killed an End Realm evil warrior. However, for this, Xiaochen had paid a huge price. It was not hard to tell from the blood flowing out from Xiaochen's mouth. In order to quickly kill this evil cultivator, Xiaochen took the attacks of the 3 people head-on. His blood was indeed surging. However, he had achieved his goal. However, when Xiaochen looked at the other 5 End Realm evil warriors blocking him, his expression turned serious. At this moment, the 6 End Realm evil warriors had already killed many Sword Sect disciples because no one was blocking them. Seeing that the situation was bad, the various sword heads and elders of the Sword Sect also attacked together. Only then were they able to hold back the 6 evil warriors. Today, there were dozens of sword heads in the Sword Sect. However, it was still tough for them to fight against 6. After all, these 6 evil warriors were all End Realm experts. Luckily, there were enough sword heads and elders in the Sword Sect. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to hold back the 6 of them. However, even so, with Xiao Chen's eyesight, it wasn't hard for him to see that the sword heads and elders wouldn't be able to hold them back for long. I need to be faster. The situation was worse than he had thought. Xiao Chen had to quickly kill the 2 in front of him and block the 6 evil warriors. If not, there was no need to fight this battle. 6 End Realm experts, with no one stopping them, the effects they could cause were no joke. Thinking about that, Xiao Chen didn't hesitate and immediately attacked the remaining 2. He didn't give them any chance at all. Xiao Chen wanted to end the battle quickly. On the other side, the sword heads and elders of the sword sect were trying their best to block the 6 End Realm evil warriors. Xiao Chen, Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the other deputy sect leaders were all in a tough battle. No one was able to deal with the 6 evil warriors. The other elders and disciples weren't behind the 6 of them. Not to mention going up against them, they couldn't even take one move. With that, only the sword heads and elders could help to hold back the 6 of them. However, this wasn't a long-term plan. Although there were many sword heads and elders in the sword sect, there was still a huge gap between them and the End Realm evil warriors. The End Realm and Dao Realm couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Damn it! A sword head elder spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he hollered. The head-on collision had caused the elder to be seriously injured. And this was only the result of one exchange. The injuries on his body were definitely very serious. However, at this moment, the elder had no choice but to brace himself and continue attacking. Even if he was heavily injured, he couldn't back off. Otherwise, once the 6 evil warriors charged into the battlefield, it would be a devastating blow to the sword sect. There were many others who were in the same situation as this sword gate elder. Almost all of the sword gate elders were severely injured, blood trickled down from the corners of their mouths, and their breaths were in a state of chaos. Even so, they didn't have any intentions of giving up. They only hoped that Xiao Chen and the others could come quickly. If not, they wouldn't be able to block them. They risked their lives to hold back the 6 evil warriors. The other battlefields were the same. Not only the sword heads and elders, but even the normal disciples were in a tough battle. These evil warriors aren't afraid of death at all. An inner disciple panted as he spoke after killing an immortal emperor evil path cultivator. He couldn't remember how many evil warriors he had killed. However, it didn't seem to affect the evil warriors at all. After killing one, more evil warriors would charge at you. Sect masters said that these evil path cultivators were resurrected using a secret method. They are no different from walking corpses. They don't have any intelligence and only know how to kill. Another disciple beside the first disciple answered. The 2 of them had a good relationship and had fought side by side on the battlefield. However, as soon as the first disciple finished speaking, the other disciple turned his head and saw an evil path cultivator suddenly rushing over. Seeing this, the first disciple roared furiously. Kill him! Be careful, begging to be collected, autumn monthly ticket, begging to be recommended. Chapter 2362. On the battlefield, the slightest carelessness could lead to death. This was especially true when facing the evil warriors. This disciple had been distracted for a moment, and in the blink of an eye, an evil warrior had charged towards him. The situation was critical. At such a close distance, this disciple obviously had no chance of dodging. Furthermore, this evil path cultivator was at the small success Dao realm, and in terms of cultivation, he completely suppressed this sword sect disciple. I'm going to die. Hearing his companion shout, the disciple turned his head and saw the evil path cultivator charging towards him. At that moment, this was the only thought that appeared in the disciple's mind. He didn't even have time to stop him, and his entire person was scared silly. However, at the critical moment, a green sword light suddenly flashed by and killed this evil path cultivator on the spot. He was saved. At the very last moment, he was actually saved. He had escaped from death. The disciple immediately looked towards the direction of the person who saved him and shouted in surprise. "Senior Brother Li," the person who saved this disciple was none other than Li Suifeng. In such a tragic battle, no matter how lazy Li Suifeng was, he couldn't continue to be lazy. Facing this disciple's surprise, Li Suifeng only nodded slightly and said, "Be careful." After giving a simple warning, Li Suifeng's body flashed as he charged towards the evil path cultivator again. This disciple's luck wasn't bad, and he was saved by Li Suifeng at the last moment. However, many other disciples died at the hands of the evil path cultivators. They weren't so lucky, and no one came to save them, because no one had the time to care about others. One by one, the disciples of the famous sword sect and the evil warriors fell one after another. Both sides had people falling one after another. However, on this battlefield, they didn't even have the time to grieve. Even if their comrades fell, they still had to continue fighting. Countless disciples of the Sword's Gate had fallen, and even 2 elders of the Sword's Gate had been slain. "Damn it, we must stop him, stop him." Seeing the people beside him fall, a sword-head elder shouted in anger. He then charged towards the 6 End Realm Evil Path cultivators. They had to stop these 6 people. For this, they would not hesitate even if all the Sword Elder died in battle. Hearing the Sword Elder's words, the rest of the people also charged forward fearlessly. Xiaochen had been paying attention to Elder Jianzhi's situation. He was secretly anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Xiaochen couldn't leave. He had already made up his mind to exchange injuries for lives. However, he was still unable to deal with the 2 evil path cultivators before him. It wasn't that Xiaochen wasn't as strong as these 2 End Realm evil warriors, but that he didn't have enough time. Xiaochen wasn't able to insta-kill these 2 evil path cultivators. If not, Xiaochen wouldn't be risking his life to fight. Seeing the casualties on Elder Jianzhi's side getting more and more serious, Xiaochen became more and more anxious. If all the Sword Sect elders died, then even if the Sword Sect won this battle, it would be meaningless. After all, although Elder Jianzhi wasn't a top expert in the Sword Sect, he was a cornerstone. Damn it, if my cultivation could break through, I would be able to insta-kill these 2. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. The one that gave Xiaochen the biggest headache was still the small End Realm Evil Path cultivator. His cultivation was higher than Xiaochen's by a small realm. So, many of Xiaochen's killing moves were blocked by him. There were many times when Xiaochen could have killed the other person first, but in the end, he blocked them all. However, Xiaochen couldn't do anything about it. He was anxious. If only he could break through to small End Realm. If their cultivations were the same, Xiaochen would definitely be able to insta-kill this evil path cultivator. Just as Xiaochen was thinking about that, the barrier of his cultivation actually loosened a little. This is... Xiaochen's cultivation had reached the limit of End Realm. Now, he actually felt a chance to break through. All of a sudden, Xiaochen couldn't help but feel delighted. Breaking through to small End Realm, as long as he succeeded, then everything would be solved. However, this was the battlefield. To break through here, to forcefully break through on the battlefield, if one wasn't careful, the outcome would be unimaginable. However, after hesitating for a moment, Xiaochen made his decision. No matter what, he had to break through to small End Realm. Only then could he turn the situation around. "Who cares?" he said softly. Then, Xiaochen started to break through the barrier of small End Realm while fighting. Not only did he use his spiritual energy to attack, but Xiaochen even used the intense battle with the 2 evil path cultivators to help him break through. He clashed head-on with the 2 of them, causing the vital energy in his body to surge. However, because of that, Xiaochen could feel that his cultivation was rising and he was just a thread away from small End Realm. Sure. Xiaochen was overjoyed when he sensed the changes in his powers. There was still hope. With hope, Xiaochen's attacks became even fiercer. Whether or not he could break through to small End Realm, whether or not he could turn the situation around would depend on this. Xiaochen chose to break through on the battlefield. If such a thing happened to other people, only a madman would dare to do it. However, Xiaochen was a little stubborn and could even be said to be a little stubborn. So, naturally, he wouldn't care about such things. Moreover, other than making a breakthrough in his cultivation, there was no other way. Therefore, no matter what, he had to give it a try. Xiaochen went all out to break through the small end realm. Along with his cultivation rising, Xiaochen's combat strength also became stronger and stronger. In the end, he felt that the barrier was starting to break. Xiaochen swallowed a bunch of pills to replenish the spiritual energy in his body to help him break through. After the pills entered his stomach, Xiaochen was still fighting with the two evil path cultivators. The two of them didn't have intelligence. If it was other people, they definitely wouldn't let Xiaochen swallow pills so easily. Pure spiritual energy slashed open in Xiaochen's body. Then, the barrier to small end realm was successfully opened. All of a sudden, the spiritual energy in Xiaochen's body seemed to have broken through some kind of shackle and instantly rose. Xiaochen's change in cultivation naturally caused many people to change. When the Sword Sect members saw that Xiaochen had broken through, they were all delighted. Little brother broke through? Longqing looked at Xiaochen with uncontrollable joy on his face. Who knew that in such an intense battle, Xiaochen would actually break through and reach small end realm? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2363. Xiaochen's cultivation had successfully broken through. Longqing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others were naturally excited. No one expected Xiaochen to be able to break through in the middle of a battle. Xiaochen's cultivation had successfully broken through. Longqing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others were naturally excited. No one expected Xiaochen to be able to break through in the middle of a battle. After breaking through to the small perfection end realm, Xiaochen's combat strength had increased by a large amount. Facing the two evil path cultivators in front of him, Xiaochen was filled with killing intent. Die! Xiaochen shouted and slashed towards one of them with his sword. He used the Emperor's sword. As his cultivation increased, the power of the Emperor's sword also increased. Xiaochen swung his sword. The evil warrior wanted to block the attack, but he had underestimated Xiaochen's strength. He was sent flying by the sword. After sending one person flying with one sword, Xiaochen didn't stop. He moved and chased after the evil path cultivator. Let's kill one first. However, just as Xiaochen attacked, the other evil path cultivator, who was also at the small perfection end realm, attacked Xiaochen. Xiaochen was indeed annoyed when the two of them teamed up. He did not have much time to tangle with the two of them, yet he was unable to kill them all in one hit. However, things were different now. Xiaochen's strength was naturally much stronger than before after he made a breakthrough in his cultivation. Therefore, facing the other evil path cultivator's attack, Xiaochen punched out and clashed with him. Xiaochen successfully forced the evil path cultivator back. At the same time, he used the evil path cultivator's strength to attack the evil path cultivator who was heavily injured by his sword. Without giving the evil path cultivator any chance, Xiaochen instantly appeared in front of him. He slashed out with his dustless Jiani sword and killed the evil path cultivator on the spot. Originally, there were 3 end-realm evil path cultivators attacking Xiaochen, but now, 2 of them had died under Xiaochen's sword. Only one was left. This made things much simpler. In a one-on-one situation, although the last evil path cultivator was also at the small perfection end realm, he was much weaker than Xiaochen. In terms of combat strength, the two of them couldn't be compared at all. As expected, not long after, Xiaochen successfully killed this person. Then, he didn't stop and directly attacked the other 6 end-realm evil path cultivators. These 6 people had been blocked by the Sword Sect elders. However, after fighting for so long, the Sword Sect elders were all heavily injured. 2 of them had even died. Looking at the situation, they probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Luckily, Xiaochen killed the 3 people who were attacking him in time. Now, they were finally free. Just as one of the sword sect elders was heavily injured and was about to be killed by the evil path cultivator, Xiaochen arrived in time. He slashed out with his sword and successfully saved the sword sect elder. At the same time, he forced the evil path cultivator to retreat. Sect leader. At the last moment, when even he thought that he was going to die, Xiaochen arrived in time. Looking at Xiaochen's back, the sword sect elder said emotionally. When he heard his words, Xiaochen said expressionlessly, "I will deal with this. Go." With the cultivation and strength of the sword sect elders, it was obviously impossible for them to fight against an end-realm evil path cultivator. It was already not easy for them to delay for so long. When he heard Xiaochen's words, the sword sect elder didn't say anything. He turned around and left. He knew that with his strength, he couldn't help Xiaochen at all. He might even drag Xiaochen down. He told the sword sect elders to find other opponents. As for the 6 end-realm evil path cultivators, he would let Xiaochen deal with them himself. 1 against 6. As the sword sect elders left, Xiaochen looked at the 6 end-realm evil path cultivators in front of him. A cold smile appeared on his face as he muttered softly. 1 against 6, huh? That's really exciting. Xiaochen couldn't help but feel a little excited about the fact that he was going to fight against 6 evil cultivators who were all in the end realm. Compared to before, Xiaochen was much more relaxed. After all, he didn't have to worry about anything else. Now that there were people dealing with the end realm evil path cultivators, Xiaochen had enough time to slowly play with the 6 of them. He didn't have to worry about other things like before. Only the 6 of them were left in his eyes. Along with Xiaochen's words, the 6 of them all attacked Xiaochen. Seeing this, Xiaochen laughed. He didn't retreat and instead went forward. Haha, good. Using his own strength to fight against 6 end-realm evil path cultivators, Xiaochen's battle fell into the eyes of the sword sect members. All of a sudden, the morale of the entire sword sect rose. First, he broke through in battle. Then, he fought 1 against 6. Xiaochen's performance greatly boosted the morale of the disciples and elders of the sword sect. Now that the biggest threat was blocked by Xiaochen, the people of the sword sect could go all out and fight. However, compared to everyone's excitement, Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others were worried. After all, Xiaochen was fighting 1 against 6, and they didn't know if Xiaochen could win. Because they were worried about Xiaochen's safety, Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the other deputy sect leaders all wanted to quickly deal with the enemies in front of them and help Xiaochen. Unfortunately, their strength couldn't be compared to Xiaochen's. It was very difficult to end the battle in a short time. Xiaochen was completely oblivious to everyone's thoughts. At this moment, he was already engaged in a fierce battle with the 6 evil warriors. Fighting against 6 alone was indeed very stressful for Xiaochen, but it was precisely because of this that Xiaochen became more and more courageous. The battle slowly entered a stalemate. Just at that moment, the space in the sky twisted. Then, a beautiful woman in a black dress appeared in the sky. This beautiful woman was none other than one of the evil sovereigns of the evil path, Qi Mei. Qi Mei suddenly appeared on the battlefield, and her eyes landed on Xiaochen right away. Seeing Xiaochen fight 1 against 6 end-realm evil path cultivators, Qi Mei revealed a charming smile. What a shocking little fellow. Even I can't bear to kill you. Qi Mei's smile was indeed very charming. However, just as she finished speaking, a slightly cold figure appeared. As expected, she couldn't help but attack. Along with the words, Luo Xing's body also appeared in the sky. The two of them looked at each other from afar. Qi Mei was naturally familiar with Luo Xing. The two of them had already fought in the Flame Wind world. As the only 2 females among the evil sovereigns, Luo Xing and Qi Mei were natural opponents. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2364. Both Qi Mei and Luo Xing could be said to be outstanding beauties, and their strength was also extremely terrifying. At this moment, Chimei looked at Luo Xing and smiled. Didn't you also appear? Why? Do you want to fight with me again? Looking at Chimei, she didn't seem to be enemies with Luo Xing, but rather friends. However, Luo Xing said coldly, not to fight, but to kill you. Luo Xing and Chimei had fought several times in the Flaming Wind boundary. The strength of the two women could be said to be on par. After a few battles, neither of them had the upper hand. It was also because of this that the two women wanted to kill each other, especially Luo Xing, who was filled with killing intent towards Chimei. Hearing Luo Xing's words, Chimei smiled charmingly, but her eyes were also bursting with killing intent. However, just as Chimei was about to focus all her attention on Luo Xing, an old man suddenly appeared behind Chimei without any warning. This old man was one of the sovereigns of the Great Thousand World, and also the skinny old man that Jun Huiya personally went to invite. Previously, no one had sensed the old man's existence, but now, the old man suddenly appeared and attacked Chimei directly. The old man had actually come with Luo Xing, but he did not appear before because he was waiting for this opportunity. With Luo Xing and Chimei's strength, it was basically impossible for Luo Xing to kill Chimei directly. Therefore, Luo Xing and the old man decided to launch a sneak attack this time. First, Luo Xing would appear and let Chimei think that she came alone. Then, the old man would find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack and kill Chimei, an evil sovereign, in one strike. Now that the old man had attacked and Chimei was unprepared, it was obvious that the two of them had almost succeeded. However, just as the old man's attack was about to hit Chimei, without any warning, an evil sovereign behind Chimei suddenly acted and helped Chimei block the old man's attack. A blood-red light formed a circular shield behind Chimei, successfully blocking the old man's attack. At the same time, a middle-aged man appeared out of thin air behind Chimei. Luo Xing and the old man were familiar with this middle-aged man. He was also an evil exalt from the evil Dao. The middle-aged man appeared, a mocking smile on his face. He looked at the elder and said, "You call yourselves from the righteous path, but when you do such sneaky things, you're not the slightest bit inferior to us corrupt path." The middle-aged man's words were filled with disdain and ridicule. His meaning was very clear. He was saying that the old man and Luo Xing actually wanted to sneak attack Chimei. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the old man's expression didn't change at all. Instead, it was Chimei who sneered, "Luo Xing, your methods are a bit despicable. In order to kill me, you even used a sneak attack." Launching a sneak attack wasn't something to be proud of, but neither the old man nor Luo Xing cared about it. Luo Xing said indifferently after hearing Chimei, "If a sneak attack can kill you, I don't think there's anything despicable about it." The Great Thousand World and the evil Dao weren't just fighting on the stage. They were truly fighting to the death. As long as they could kill each other, they could use any method. Not to mention a sneak attack, even poisoning was nothing. Moreover, Chimei was an evil exalt from the evil Dao. If they could successfully launch a sneak attack and kill her today, it would be great news for the Great Thousand World. Therefore, there was no such thing as despicable or not. Moreover, Chimei also didn't come alone, and the middle-aged man from before didn't appear. In this way, Chimei probably also had the idea of a sneak attack, but unfortunately, both sides didn't succeed. In order to kill each other, the process naturally didn't matter. Only the result mattered. In the sky, the four sovereigns and evil exalts gathered together. In the sneak attack just now, no one had the upper hand. Luo Xing said indifferently, "Then let's do it." Luo Xing immediately attacked Chimei. Seeing this, Chimei didn't retreat. Instead, she went forward to meet him. The old man and the middle-aged man did the same. Both of them attacked at the same time. In an instant, the four sovereigns were engaged in a fierce battle. Both Chimei and Luo Xing knew that once they took action, the other side would definitely take action as well. After all, whether it was the Great Thousand World or the evil path, it was impossible for them, the evil masters and venerable sovereigns, to attack the martial artists below. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for both sides. Therefore, Qimei and Luo Xing used sneak attacks at the same time to get rid of each other. Unfortunately, such a sneak attack didn't seem to have any effect because both sides had the same idea. The others naturally didn't have the qualifications to intervene in the battle between the four. Xiao Chen and the people from the Sword sect had already noticed the appearance of the four, but they didn't have the time to care. At this time, the four of them were engaged in a fierce battle. They had all sealed the space to prevent the aftermath of the battle from affecting the people below. It could be said that they were old rivals. Therefore, when Luo Xing and Qimei fought, they used their killing moves. There was no need for those useless probing moves. Behind Qimei, there was a bloody aura, and behind Luo Xing, there was a crescent moon. Every time the two of them attacked, the terrifying power was shocking. In just a few breaths, the two of them had already exchanged hundreds of moves. However, looking at the current situation, the two of them were evenly matched. No one had the upper hand. The four sovereigns were engaged in a fierce battle. Below, Xiao Chen was also engaged in a fierce battle with the 6 End Realm Evil Dao cultivators. Facing the 6 of them at the same time, Xiao Chen's body was indeed heavily injured. Fresh blood gradually dyed his clothes red. There was no other way. Fighting 1 against 6, no matter how strong Xiao Chen was, it was impossible for him to be uninjured. However, although his injuries were getting more and more serious, and at this moment, Xiao Chen was even slashed in the back by one of them. Blood instantly spurted out. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about this at all. His gaze locked onto the evil Dao cultivator who had been heavily injured by him. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He moved his feet and shouted coldly, "Kill one first." This evil Dao cultivator had been specially taken care of by Xiao Chen from the start. At this moment, he was already heavily injured. At this moment, facing Xiao Chen's sure-kill sword, this evil Dao cultivator naturally had no way to block it. Facing 6 End Realm Evil Dao cultivators at the same time, killing one first was Xiao Chen's strategy. Because it was very difficult to kill all 6 of them at the same time, he could only kill the weaker one first. This way, the pressure on Xiao Chen would be reduced by a lot. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2365. Xiao Chen slashed out with his sword and killed the evil warrior in an instant. Xiao Chen fought against 6 of them alone and managed to kill one of them. However, Xiao Chen himself spat out a mouthful of blood. This was because when Xiao Chen killed this person, the other 3 evil warriors joined forces and launched an attack. They struck Xiao Chen's back fiercely. The huge force caused the blood in Xiao Chen's body to churn. Xiao Chen's physical body was strong. Otherwise, just this attack alone would have been enough to severely injure Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen couldn't help but charge forward for a long distance. After stabilizing his body, the other 5 evil warriors attacked Xiao Chen again before he could catch his breath. As they didn't have spiritual intelligence, these evil warriors were fighting with their lives. They didn't know fear at all. Even though Xiao Chen had already killed one of them, the remaining 5 were still fearless. He had no choice but to continue fighting with the 5 of them. However, with one less person, the pressure on Xiao Chen was indeed much less. At least, it wasn't as huge as before. They were originally worried about Xiao Chen. However, at this moment, not only did Xiao Chen kill one of them, but he was also evenly matched with the 5 of them. Long Qing, Xin Yuanling, and the others secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, they were also shocked by Xiao Chen's strength. Looking at them, they felt that it was extremely strenuous to fight 1 against 3. However, Xiao Chen directly fought 1 against 6. Not only did he not lose, he even killed one of them. Such strength was far from what others could compare to. The sword realm was activated to the extreme. The biting cold aura caused many wounds on the 5 evil warriors. However, even so, the 5 evil warriors didn't seem to care at all. They forcefully resisted the pressure of the sword realm and fought fiercely with Xiao Chen. In order to win, Xiaochen could only exchange injuries for lives. Not only would he reduce the number of enemies, but Xiaochen also locked onto one of the evil warriors who was only at the end realm cultivation. This person's strength was on par with the evil warrior that he had just killed. He was also the weakest of the remaining 5. If he could kill him, the pressure on Xiaochen would obviously be much less. However, with the 5 of them working together, Xiaochen couldn't find a chance to attack. He could only choose to take the attacks of the other 4 head-on and launch a sure-kill attack on this person. Thinking of this, the killing intent in Xiaochen's eyes continued to condense. He focused his attacks on this evil warrior. Being specially targeted by Xiaochen, this evil warrior naturally couldn't resist and was quickly injured by Xiaochen. However, it was one thing to injure him, but it wasn't so easy to kill him. As time passed, the injuries on this evil warrior's body became more and more obvious. Finding an opportunity, Xiaochen's killing intent burst forth again. He pointed out with his finger and a blood-red sword light went straight for this evil warrior. Facing Xiaochen's attack, this evil warrior immediately put up a defense. However, under the attack of the blood-red sword light, his defense was quickly shattered. However, he also successfully blocked Xiaochen's attack. However, Xiaochen directly used the Emperor's sword. This time, facing Xiaochen's attack, this evil warrior was completely unable to block it. He could only watch as the terrifying sword light enveloped him and he was directly killed on the spot. Xiaochen had killed another person, but the price he had to pay for this was also extremely high. Just as Xiaochen killed this evil warrior, he was also hit by the other 4 people consecutively. His breathing had already become a little chaotic. At the same time, his face was extremely pale and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His injuries weren't light, but he had successfully killed 2 people. There were only 4 people left. He was very clear that if he could kill these 6 End-Realm evil warriors, then there shouldn't be any problems in this battle. Taking down Mausoleum City would be logical. Forcefully bearing the intense pain in his body, Xiaochen continued to fight with the 4 people. With only 4 people left, the pressure on Xiaochen decreased once again. However, these 4 people were all at End Realm. Compared to the previous 2, these 4 people were obviously much stronger. So, all of a sudden, Xiaochen couldn't find a good chance to kill these 4 people. Moreover, as the battle continued, especially to kill the previous 2 people, Xiaochen's consumption was huge. The more time passed, the more difficult it was for him. At this time, no one could help Xiaochen. Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the other deputy sect leaders were all in a tough battle. Especially Long Qing and Xianyuan Ling, the 2 of them were fighting 1 against 3 evil warriors. Their strength wasn't as good as Xiaochen's, so in a short time, Long Qing and Xianyuan Ling couldn't free themselves. His clothes had long been dyed red by blood. However, Xiaochen had to kill these 4 evil warriors. As long as he killed them, the result of this battle would be decided. The Sword Sect would be able to successfully take down Mausoleum City and gain a foothold in Etienne Manor. This would have a huge impact on the following battle. After all, if they couldn't take down Mausoleum City, then all of Xiaochen's plans wouldn't be realized. The Sword Sect could only choose to retreat out of Etienne Manor and continue to slowly fight with the evil warriors. Xiaochen's side forcefully held on, his attacks not weakening at all. In the sky, Luo Xing, Qi Mei, and the old man and middle-aged man were also engaged in an intense battle. However, it was obviously very difficult for these 4 Emperor Realm evil sovereigns to decide the victor. So, the 4 of them were doing their best to delay the other party. Otherwise, the other party would attack the people below. The battle had already entered a white-hot stage. As time passed, Xiaochen's side finally killed all 4 of the evil warriors. His hair was a little messy and his aura was extremely weak. However, no matter what, Xiaochen finally succeeded in killing these 6 evil warriors. In this battle, Xiaochen consecutively killed 9 End-Realm experts of the evil path. After the battle ended, Xiaochen didn't have any more strength to fight. Even the arm holding the Wuchen sword couldn't help but tremble slightly. His consciousness also started to become blurry. Fortunately, Xian Yuanling's side ended the battle at this time. Just as Xiao Chen was about to fall from the sky, Xian Yuanling's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He appeared beside Xiao Chen and supported him. "How are you? Are you okay?" Feeling Xiao Chen's weak aura, Xian Yuanling asked with concern. At this moment, Xiao Chen's injuries weren't light. It could even be said that he was almost killed. Xiao Chen was also very clear about his own situation. However, the result was still good. Revealing a forced smile, Xiao Chen shook his head. "I can still hold on. There shouldn't be any problems from now on. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 2366. Killing 9 End Realm experts from the evil path, such an achievement was enough to make one's jaw drop. Although Xiao Chen was heavily injured and had no fighting ability, because Xiao Chen killed 9 people in a row, the situation was slowly tilting towards the Sword Sect. Killing 9 End Realm experts from the evil path, such an achievement was definitely enough to make one's jaw drop. Although Xiao Chen was heavily injured and had no fighting ability, because Xiao Chen killed 9 people in a row, the situation was slowly tilting towards the Sword Sect. Originally, the evil path had more End Realm experts than the Sword Sect, and this was specially arranged by Qi Mei to defend Mausoleum City. Unfortunately, after the 9 End Realm experts were killed by Xiao Chen, the number of End Realm experts on both sides had completely flipped. Now, it was the Sword Sect's turn to have more End Realm experts than the evil path. With that, the chances of the Sword Sect taking down Mausoleum City had increased by a lot. Forcefully supporting his body, with Xian Yuanling's help, Xiao Chen's gaze slowly swept across the battlefield. Now, the situation was slowly tilting towards the Sword Sect, and the disciples of the Sword Sect were starting to suppress the evil path. He didn't continue to attack, or rather, Xiao Chen didn't have any strength left. The spiritual energy in his body was close to dry, and there were waves of intense pain coming from all parts of his body. In such a state, he couldn't continue to fight. After swallowing a healing pill, Xiao Chen only needed to wait for the battle to end. After killing 9 End Realm experts, Xiao Chen's mission was completed. What Xiao Chen needed to do now was to patiently wait for the battle to end. Xian Yuanling was in charge of taking care of Xiao Chen. At the same time, in the sky, Qi Mei, Luo Xing, and the others who were in an intense battle also noticed the changes below. After seeing Xiao Chen kill 9 End Realm evil warriors in a row, Qi Mei's face turned gloomy. 9 End Realm experts, this wasn't some random trash. Although the evil faction had many End Realm experts, they couldn't handle such losses. In just one battle, 9 End Realm experts had died at Xiao Chen's hands. Such a price made even Qi Mei feel pained. However, this wasn't the most important thing. After losing 9 End Realm experts, could Mausoleum City still defend? Qi Mei's complexion turned ugly. She was fully prepared for the Battle of Mausoleum City, but who would have thought that the situation would turn out like this? It could be said that the reason for this battle was entirely because of Xiao Chen. Qi Mei had underestimated Xiao Chen and didn't expect Xiao Chen to be so strong. If not, without Xiao Chen, the Sword Sect definitely wouldn't have been able to take down Mausoleum City. They might have even paid a heavy price here. However, because Xiao Chen had killed 9 of their End Realm experts, the situation had changed. After losing 9 of their End Realm experts, the pressure on Sword's Gate had lessened by quite a bit. Damn it! She cursed in her heart. At this moment, Qi Mei naturally couldn't remain relaxed. The importance of Mausoleum City was self-explanatory and Qi Mei was clear about that. Once they lost this battle and lost Mausoleum City, it would be difficult to take it back. She was furious, but there was nothing she could do. This was because Luo Xing was holding her back and didn't give her any chance. As they say, some people were happy while others were sad. Compared to Qi Mei's rage, Luo Xing was much more relaxed. Luo Xing was also paying attention to the battle below. After seeing Xiao Chen kill 9 people in a row, Luo Xing's mood improved and she felt much more relaxed. Based on the current situation, Mausoleum City should be within her reach. As for herself, she just needed to hold Qimei back and not give her any chance to attack. With that, Mausoleum City would be in the hands of the Sword Sect. She heaved a sigh of relief. Luo Xing continued to exchange blows with Qimei and waited for the outcome of the battle below. They were all clear that if nothing unexpected happened, the outcome of the battle was basically set. Especially after Long Qing killed the 3 End Realm Evil Path experts, the morale of the Sword Sect rose. They basically didn't have much strength to resist. As for the other Evil Path experts, they were being killed by the Sword Sect experts. In order to quickly end the battle, Xiao Chen swallowed a healing pill. After his injuries were under control, he said to Xian Yuanling, "Big brother, don't worry about me. Quickly end the battle in case anything happens." Xiao Chen indicated that Xian Yuanling didn't need to stay here to take care of him. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xian Yuanling said worriedly, "Are you really okay?" "Don't worry, big brother, just go. I'm fine here." Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xian Yuanling didn't say anything else. He first brought Xiao Chen to the back of the battlefield, a safe place. Then, Xian Yuanling joined the battle once more. With the addition of Xian Yuanling and Long Qing, the Evil Path's situation became even worse. Although Xian Yuanling and Long Qing's combat strength wasn't as abnormal as Xiao Chen's, after breaking through to the End Realm, their strength had already surpassed the various deputy sect leaders of the Sword Sect. After all, Long Qing and Xian Yuanling were both geniuses and monsters. Their combat strength was also extremely strong. As such, under their leadership, the Evil Path experts found it harder and harder to resist. The Sword Sect also continued to push towards Mausoleum City. The Evil Path experts found it harder and harder to resist, and they became weaker and weaker. Not long later, many disciples of the Sword Sect charged into Mausoleum City. Although there were still some Evil Path experts stubbornly resisting in Mausoleum City, such resistance was no longer a threat to the Sword Sect. They gradually occupied Mausoleum City, and the final outcome was set. In the Battle of Mausoleum City, with Xiao Chen's strength, the Sword Sect successfully won and took over Mausoleum City. Although Qimei was unwilling to accept this result, there was nothing she could do. She wanted to stop Luo Xing, but Luo Xing didn't give her the chance. Seeing that Mausoleum City had successfully fallen into the hands of the Sword Sect, Qimei also knew that there was no point in continuing to fight. If she continued to be entangled here, Qimei would be in danger. Who knew when the other sovereigns of the Great Thousand World would appear? Moreover, there were so many experts of the Sword Sect here. If she was surrounded, even Qimei would find it difficult to escape. Qimei looked deeply at Xiao Chen below, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She said coldly, "Xiao Chen, I will remember you." As her voice fell, Qimei didn't hesitate. After clashing with Luo Xing's palm, she chose to retreat. Luo Xing didn't have much intention to stop her. After all, if Qimei wanted to leave, Luo Xing couldn't stop her. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.